And we are here at the Dwarven Axe Q3 2023 event. Welcome to the new stream. We're trying something new. We got Chris behind the cameras over here. He's running all the show, DJing everything for us, and it should be fantastic. So let us know what you think. We're excited to have a professional, a true professional, and not just us doing
around
scrambling for a bed sheet for a background. So welcome again to everything. I am Alex Hunt. I'm here joined by my co-host
Kelsey Eldred.
And then we have a guest judge over here, James. James, if you want to introduce yourself, plug your socials, be awesome. Okay.
Hello. I'm the person that you turn to for advice on getting something done quickly and looking slightly better than what you'd probably expect. I'm a speed painter, but my main socials are, you might see me as Tattooed Tabletop. Been in the hobby for about 5-6 years, and I have 14 armies, so I am GW stock options in a nutshell. So I'm really looking forward to looking at more of just my models displayed out.
You can't say insider information like
that. I really can't. That's fair. That's fair enough.
It's not allowed.
But yeah, my socials.
Said that's public.
If anyone's interested in checking out my socials, they will be linked here. So appreciate it. Really excited. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. John Green. First up, and should we be talking? Are we good here? Everything's sliding around. I'm sorry. We're gonna start off doing categories. It's a little late for entries, but we're excited for the entries that we have. They're fantastic, so it's gonna be a good time. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah.
It does matter that he's excited.
It's not just me.
I know. There's palpitation. Palpitation.
Yeah.
This is going downhill fast.
That thing is not ever like a little WD-40.
I graced it on Monday.
Wow, that's bad.
Naughty mic stand. No better.
And we just got demonetized. No.
It's not the first time. So, as always, we will be going through and having categories. We're going to be going from. Chris has a question.
Actually, Strike here says hello.
Hello.
That's Simon.
Bienvenue.
That's
Come on
Simon.
in.
Welcome to the stream.
Welcome to the stream. Oh, I gotta respond to Riley in chat. Yep. Okay, someone already did. Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Someone was asking if we were streaming.
There we are.
In any case, we're gonna start off with some young bloods. We have 2 young bloods to talk about, and then shifting into sci-fi singles, fantasy singles, going into Unit, Vehicle Monster, Titanic, and then Open Last. So hopefully you can catch your portion of the stream. Feel free to clip it and do what you need to do to get a hold of your feedback for your model, and we're hoping that it'll be another great quarter here. So
For sure.
So, but in any case, Chris, are we good to go over there?
Yes.
To get going? Awesome. So first up, we've got Charlie for Youngblood Sci-Fi, and he did the First Lieutenant Percy, which is a Space Marine. We want to kick things off here.
Brand new Space Marine.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's a brand new Space Marine.
For a new lieutenant that has more lieutenant things to him.
So many lieutenants.
So much
If
sharpness.
anyone tunes in from England, Lieutenant, there you go, covered.
Actually, I think it's the rest of the world.
It really is. We're just the worst.
There's a really nice
It's spelled lieutenant.
Yeah.
It's a really nice base coat of the black on here. That's good. The metal basing on the plates and stuff is really well done too. And all the colors are blocked into where they need to be.
Yeah, and it seems like it's contrast at the minimum, I would say. some nice, basic base tones that I have right there. There's nothing wrong with having something very basic and starter for first models, and just getting started, just getting them on the table so you can play with them.
Yeah,
especially
exactly.
when you're just getting into an army. All you want to do is build and get them onto the table. So I have no qualms with that. I will say something that is nice is that there's not a lot of like cleanup that I'm immediately looking at and saying, other than maybe drilling up the barrels of guns. But there's nothing that, from like a assembly standpoint, that really stands out to me as saying, hey, you need to focus on cleaning up mold lines or sprue flash or things like that.
That was really well done.
I honestly really do think you did a good job on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's even a few spots where I think to myself, even just like a wash on, like, for example, those leathers, and they'll pop even more. And I like the color choices as well. Of course, classic purple for the chitin. Yeah, chitin. I always say chitin. Yeah, chitin. Chitin stuff. And of course, I like the color of the chitin on the bottom there too, for the one he's stomping on, because of course he's got to display superiority. Yeah.
Yeah, the only good bug is dead. That's what I heard.
Yes. Per the Exterminator group, brought to you by Orkin. Yeah, but otherwise, great start, and of course I always see Charlie out and around. He's always playing, and I always love seeing him. So thanks for submitting, Charlie.
Yeah, I was gonna say the one thing that I would point out is to just bring it up to the next level. Even some simple dry brushing on the black or the gray would make things
direct, clear message, call to action.
Next step for this.
It's the same.
It's something very simple.
But when I was
5 minutes a model,
learning about
the entire army relatively
direct, clear message,
just to
call to action.
Those extra little bits. I mean,
No, I would agree, because that would doing a light dry brush to even be able to pop out some of the edges of the model will make it stand out even more, and trying to focus more of the highlight on the top of the model to draw your eye back up to the top and to the face of the model instead of just looking like it was smeared on.
or everywhere else. So,
Right.
yeah, and honestly,
message,
and
call to
for
action.
the young bloods especially, I want to point out the next
you
step.
can kind of
Right. So dry brushing is a great next step.
Yeah.
But
Washes and things could help to make sure that if you have a wash, either you water
direct,
it down
clear
a bit
message,
or
call to action.
reinforce those highlights so that you bring it back up and doesn't look washed.
It's the same.
Kind of the staple. So add in those dry brushes after the wash dry, and you can really add a lot.
Yeah, I would agree.
Concur.
I concur. Do you concur with this diagnosis, Doctor? Yes.
Yes, I do.
Fantastic. Catch me if you can. Fantastic film.
Conquered.
Conquered, yes.
Conquered. We're conquering this stream.
I'm pretty sure that's just a bad for today.
Wow. That was
Oh, you like it and you know it.
one out. That's it. Done.
I'm out. One model and we're out.
We're done. That was it, folks. So next up, we got another young blood.
Lucas.
Yeah.
Lucas, the brother.
Okay, so an older brother, a younger brother, and then.
Yep. Yeah. So Charlie's the older one. Lucas is the younger one. But both paint Space Marines. I saw him painting some orcs recently.
Ooh.
Which is always exciting. And he was painting the armor purple, so it was hidden.
Oh, sneaky orcs.
Sneaky orcs.
Sneaky orcs is always a good.
But we got another. Named the Demon of Corn.
This is the Demon of Corn. Yeah. He's very blue for the Demon of Corn.
Very blue. And this one, he has a lot more of the textured rocks on top of his bases to kind of meld it back in and keep it in the same environment, which is nice. base coat of blue is really well done.
Yeah, looking at it, the base coat of blue is what stands out to me as being very like bright. And the same thing can be said about the black too. Both of them have a nice quality to them for base coating. This one seems to have a lot more detail oriented around like the blood on the blade, the face being painted a different color. You have the guns being picked out a bit more, so that you have those details. Same with you need to look at making sure that your gun barrel is drilled out. But like he's even tried to do a half split on the knee, and so there's
Pushing and trying new things. Which
yeah,
is good.
yeah, and that's what I feel like. This one wasn't like his first. It wasn't an initial, try at something.
And the Tyranid blood on the blades there.
Yeah. So it's all the same. So it adds in that nice extra bit of cohesion to the model. I would repeat though that you'll probably want to dry brush some things so that you can pull up some of those highlights and make it so that it pops a bit more than what it is right now. So
yeah, it looks like we're killing more models from Hyphy Leviathan with the purple. And you actually have the matching purple between the shoulder pad, arm pad, and the actual one that he's standing on there, which is very nice. And I also appreciate the detail of getting the exhaust port on the combi flamer aspect of that. Picking out that little metal detail as well. But yeah, overall off to a fantastic start, as we all start. I personally still have my very first model that I painted, and I think it's important to hold on to them just to see growth.
Yeah.
See how much it's changed. And I do like the extra bits of texture on the base. It actually kind of adds a nice immersion to it as well.
Yeah. I do think that to your point about having your first model and keeping it around is a really good thing to do. And I know at Renegade last year for the quarter 4 Dwarven Axe, we were encouraging people to bring their first models, and we had a good number of people that brought them.
It was great.
They were really fun. People loved looking at them and comparing where they were now, kind of thing, and showing it off. And there was a lot of encouragement.
Yeah.
People were really proud of their first models. It was really funny. Just like, this is my first model. It looks like crap, but I love this model. It's where I started. It's where all the passion grows from. So,
Do you guys remember your first model?
I do. Mine was an Eldar jet bike. One of the old Eldar jet bikes, and with way too thick of metal on it, and blue, and yeah, it has since gone by the wayside. But I have my first model that I hit where I was like, this is I'll never exceed this. That's the model that I kept around.
You hit the pinnacle.
Yeah, I hit the pinnacle, and I always look at it as like, okay, you'll always be able to learn more.
My first model was a WizKids human female paladin. And the sword was completely like bent off in one direction, but I was happy with it. It was my first time painting it, and I was actually talking up with my friend Chris on Discord while I was working on it for the first time, and he was giving me little tips and tricks, and then now it's just all
I think the other interesting bit
all snowballed from there.
Yeah.
Do you know what age was the first model? Like, how old were you?
I was in college.
You were in college?
Yeah.
I was out of college, and it was only like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, my first was a firstborn Space Marine that was a Dark Angel. I bought like the Space Marine Start collecting at that time. Oh, I got theme music. Beautiful.
Look at you go.
No, you're good.
The flashback.
Da, 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 da. Yeah, it was Firstborn Space Marine. I bought the Start Collecting Space Marine with the Dark Angel upgrade sprue and Deathwing Terminators. And I painted up the Sergeant, and I gave him like the winged helmet, and I gave him a Power Fist and a Power Sword because I was a simpleton and I didn't know what to do. But it was awesome.
But that's the rule of cool.
Yeah,
right?
he's just like massive, like one hand Power Fist and then the Power Sword, and yeah, he's still sitting among my Dark Angels.
Yeah, I mean, no real reason to.
And that was 25. Yeah.
We have, I think I'm not sure how to pronounce her name, Ondikba?
Oh, that's Obi.
Hi, Obi.
John Obi. Hi, Obi.
They say thank you for doing what you do.
Aww.
Thanks, Obi.
Freaking Obi, man.
Blessings.
We miss you. Come back sometime. He's out west for
Work.
graduate work.
Yes.
Very nice.
He's all collegiate and whatever, and we're all
Educated.
Out west.
out the west.
So thank you again, Lucas, for entering your model. That was wonderful.
I mean, always good to see people getting into the hobby, starting out. It's oftentimes when you get further in the hobby or more advanced, sometimes you forget where your roots are when you're starting out, and there's just such a passion that you sometimes lose or forget about in the background.
Right. So now we're going into sci-fi singles. This is Chris's model, and he has a really well done Tyranid here from, I believe it's the Leviathan box.
Yeah. Von Ryan Reaper.
Yes. I love the blues, and this is kind of my style, so I absolutely love the color vibrancy that he went with it.
Yeah, when we were looking at this yesterday, the point that kind of got taken was that it's got a very painterly look, and one that really stands out especially on the table, but even in the case. The one problem that I had if I can give a critique is that when you get really close for like looking at it, it loses a lot of the cohesion and the crispness that the painterly look kind of lends itself from like 3 feet or 5 feet away, and which is a bummer because it's really well done. So it's almost like if you can tighten some of those blends, it would shine.
I would agree with that. And it sometimes, especially, it could be his multiple. This might be a different number in his line of working on his Leviathan box too. Sometimes repetitiveness you kind of lose sight of wanting to keep those blends. Taking breaks from even just taking a break from doing a Leviathan, working on a Tyranid and just hopping to something else for a little bit helps to keep that motivation to keep pushing yourself to do those blends and get them right, especially up to a professional standard. I know that I'm working on I have a Dragonborn bust that I've been working on the side, but I only pick it up every now and then when I'm in the mood to work on it.
Yeah.
And it's showing its results just for me taking constant breaks from it to revisit it later.
Yeah.
To push itself even further.
Taking breaks is important in those times so that you don't burn out, especially if you're doing, especially with large horde armies like Nids or Orcs or
but I absolutely love the color palette of it.
Yeah. No, it stands out.
The blue. As anyone knows who has seen my miniatures, me gusta blue. Especially this kind of like teal blue and like the chitin edges like build up really, really nicely. I see a few spots where like the brush hit the darker area, but again, if we were talking 5 foot rule, passes that with flying colors. Like it's got tufts. It's gotta keep it tough. Tough to, but yeah. Especially when you're talking tabletop, like if you're setting this on the table, like it's very readable. You can pick up individual details and stuff like that. It's just when you get a little bit closer, you start to see a few bits and pieces like that. But other than that, I mean, the choice of the red, everything contrasts and everything hits really nicely. And of course, the little detail of like the little veins, little alien veins on the side, having that bluish pink. Or that purplish pink is fantastic as well.
Yeah, it pops super nice for that.
It does. Fits that Tyranid aesthetic.
Yeah, the one thing that I will point out is like the small detailed spots on the vents and things are really nicely picked out. They have form around them, so it's outlined so that it shows through against the skin without kind of muddling. So we took good care with that. But yeah, the thing that I'd hammer home on is that just make sure that you're blending nicely, especially for professional grade. Again, for tabletop and such, this will definitely earn.
That'll blow a lot of things out of the water.
This will be one of the top armies out there. But when you enter into a professional category, it's a lot more exact. You have to be a lot more precise with it, and so this is on the way. But again, there's that difference between what an army looks like and what a specific single model looks like. And I think this is on the edge of those two.
I would love to see the unit version.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, like I'm
yeah.
sure in the unit, like, yeah, because I know even for myself who's submitted for a unit, you know, you can, when you're submitting them in a group, there is a certain aesthetic there where they're all of them standing together, all of them based
Yep.
and everything like that.
Yep.
Like it can really draw more attention to all of them as a whole.
Yep.
Which means that maybe this is like the one that he finished first or something like that. But I mean, either way, again, like I'm looking at it from this distance and yeah, looks great.
Yep.
Readable. Readable is a good way to put it.
Something I will point out too is like clean up the base edge, so you have a lot of the texture paint that's dripping on the sides. And I am horrible about this for my own models. So this is pot calling kettle black, but make sure that you clean that up a bit, even if you scrape it away and then paint up a bit too, so that you can keep it clean, because it's a nice easy way to keep your bases nice and crisp so you're framing them.
Indeed.
Yeah, other than that, it's really, really well done. I love this color scheme, and I love the paint style.
It just pops so well.
And the base trim is painted black, as the Lord intended.
You don't want no goblin green bases.
No goblin green. I'm sorry. I know it's classic.
Just get away from
fantastic, but like,
how dare you?
It fits. I'll say this: it fits the model. But if you took like Angron and you painted that goblin green on the base, then
The green flock.
how far we have fallen as a species if that happens. That being said, I'm sure I'm going to see a picture of it now. It's someone's like light bulb.
Didn't Chris get done painting an epic style bunch of orc epic models and had them on a green, like a goblin green base with the flock, and oh man, it was
If
great.
you did that with Gazgul, I would be.
Oh, that'd be so good.
I know I'm planning on doing that with my fantasy Nagash.
Yeah, as you should, as you have to. I mean, you have to do that.
So,
Heathens.
just because it's gonna.
Or maybe I'm the heathen. Who knows? I mean, it's all. But I
So
know.
you're all about GW and whatever. Like, what are you doing?
They're just so pretty.
All right, we have Riley here
Oh man.
with his Plague Marine. He's been showing me update pictures during our Discord paint nights on Thursday nights.
Yeah.
If people are interested in joining on that,
Best paint night.
is the best paint night.
It's the best paint night.
And he has come quite far.
Yes.
In his painting.
Yes, he has. Like really stepped it up. Oh, Chris has a question from the audience.
Fifth Wind Legion says, thank you for the feedback, and yes, those are my orcs.
Nice.
Yeah,
Oh,
there you
fantastic.
go. All right.
We knew.
Yep.
But, yeah, he's come quite far in his paint style, and
You're very. Oh, by the way, you're very welcome for the feedback. I'm sorry.
yes.
Sorry. Yes, Riley has come quite far. I wanted to make sure that I.
Yeah, no, we're all
Posted
good.
that, 'cause-
Appreciate that.
Hey, appreciate that thanking.
We appreciate
I
you
thank
appreciating
you.
us.
This is a safe, welcoming space. Thank you.
I'm just trying to answer questions. That's all I'm doing. Anyway,
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, resuming.
Riley. Plague Marine, yes.
this isn't live, is it?
Pre-recorded.
Yeah.
Filmed in front of a live studio audience.
Riley's
In that
really.
case, a Baja Blast.
Riley's come a long way. I do love that he specifically changed some of the colors between them, so it's not all just the same green on the Plague Marine, which makes it pop so much. In pictures, it doesn't capture that nearly as well. So
Right.
when he was showing this off on Discord, it was like, oh, okay, that looks really good. But in person, it's a whole different level.
Right.
Because of the different smattering of color for the different greens to tans, and the wash levels different, and honestly there's like inside edging to really make it pop from the trim. Keep doing what you're doing. This is really good. You're capturing everything that I'd want out of the Plague Marine. So especially when you get this into a unit.
Well, and I feel like he did a really good job with the eye-catching aspects of this model. So one of your first eye-catching things is the nurgling on the base of it, but then you draw yourself back up because there's not as he's taken enough wash away from the top of the head of the helmet of the Plague Marine that your eye eventually just travels right up to the face of the model, and it's not lost.
Yeah, absolutely.
The grandfather would be proud. And of course, always a classic of any Nurgle-based things, verdigris. There's just a nice little bit of verdigris on all the little like joints and areas like that. You got the smoke coming out the disease flail.
Censures.
Censures. But yeah, I mean,
The basing's nice.
basing is nice. We got some nice skulls and stuff like that. And of course, I mean, I think the biggest thing for any model is recognizability. You recognize this as a Plague Marine not just because of the actual model itself, but because of the color choices, because of the metals and everything like that. And that's, at the end of the day, that's your goal with the model, is to make it identifiable. And this, you see this is a Nurgle Marine. This is a Plague Marine.
Now, I will say that there is plenty to do from here. This is a really good, like, I would say middle. You have a lot more highlighting that you can do, a lot more weathering that you can add on. But in this, it's a great place where you're starting out. So with, like, even edge highlighting on the metal would make things pop a little more, brightening up some of the verdigris, adding in some rust into it to contrast with the green. Adding some highlights on the tan, on like the wrapping on the flail, things of that nature can really pop it more than where it's at right now. But having this be your standard where you're at for your army, it can easily be, I'm gonna bring this entire army to an event. Awesome. Now I'm gonna add like a couple highlights to each model. Now I'm gonna add weathering to each model, and you can progressively do things really easily and very simply.
Yeah. Come to think of it, I think this is, correct me if I'm wrong, Riley, this is one of the Plague Marine heroes. This is one of the hero models.
Oh, okay.
Because I noticed on this right arm, it's attached to the torso there.
Oh.
So I think that's why he's got such a nice dynamic pose. I think this is one of the Plague Marine heroes that they released. So
I mean, you could slap that into.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. You can throw any of those models into your army, and then to add to kind of a little tidbit as well, just like the highlighting bit like that. But even for like a situation like this where you have an arm and like a piece that realistically is supposed to be separate, maybe even just adding a little extra shade in there to create a depth to make it seem like this arm is separate from this chest plate, I think would really would also make that pop.
I like that.
Because that's what made me think that this might be one of those Plague heroes. So if it is, please let me know. I'm curious. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I think you're right, which adds in a whole different level of like really. Riley's come a long way because that's a lot of control right there.
Correct.
So that you don't go too hard.
No,
But yeah, looks fantastic.
it looks awesome.
Great start.
Yeah, just some extra details too. Well on your way.
For sure.
Very cool.
Especially those greens. Those greens are especially difficult to work with because especially when you're working in the highlights, they get so pale so quickly. So you got to find the right mixing colors, and you got to hit that right tone to really get those highlights. But once you do that, even if you just draw attention to the major spots like the shoulders, the head, you'd be surprised at how much it pops.
Yeah.
I know that I have one of those Blood Angels.
The Blood Angel heroes, yeah.
Yeah. So haven't worked on it yet, but I have opened it up and looked at it, and I'm excited to try it out at some
Yeah,
point.
they're fun because they're so dynamic. And red in itself is tricky because you want to highlight it, but you don't want to get to like that pink. Because red can really escalate to that pink really quickly sometimes too.
Yeah.
Finding that right tonality.
Yeah, and sometimes when you're trying to highlight with red, you have to go towards orange.
Yeah, and it's always a balancing act.
Yeah, it is a balancing act, especially with that. Yeah. Because you don't want to add white because white just makes it desaturated. It doesn't actually do anything to it other than desaturate the tones. Which, if that's what you're going for, then fantastic. But
perfect spot for an ice yellow.
Yeah, I love.
Yeah, that's it. That's right. I paid stuff. I know of the color ice yellow.
Ice yellow is like the universal. I found it forever ago. Not even realizing it. And people are like, "Yeah, I swear by this color."
Yeah, you see all the
The
like
pale yellow
painters.
from Monument Hobbies is pretty close
It's
to it.
It is.
really close to ice yellow, yeah. So, oh no,
It is a Hero Series Space Marine.
Gotcha.
got it. Hey, you nailed it.
Someone was asking if they said there might be too much rust on that previous model.
On Riley's.
Oh, I would asking if there's too much rust, like too much verdigris. I'd say no. If anything, you can maybe tone it up a little bit in a few spots, especially because Space Marines and Chaos Space Marines, they have, you know, if we're talking about the idea of like what the verdigris represents, it's a divot where like moisture has settled and it's like corrosion. So they have, Chaos Space Marines have like a deeper angle there, so you can maybe even ramp it up just a little bit, but just don't get carried away with it because then it's a verdigris marine, not a plague marine.
And looking at the model, it might not come across on the pictures that well, but the blade on the back is what the plague knife really sets. What I would say is that almost needs more of a distinct rust, a bright colored rust, and that can be where you get into weathering powders or technical paints or something like that. I wouldn't go. I've gone super hard with rusts before, and they can get overpowering really quickly.
Yes.
And especially being that green and orange are going to be on opposite sides of
Color.
the color wheel, you can overpower very quickly, and then it just becomes garish to look at.
So in that case, I would just suggest trying on pieces that you have of different equipment from different sets,
Yeah.
and then just testing things on that.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a few bases that I do specifically whenever I'm testing a new texture, any technical sort of thing. I just make a base of it and, you know, put like a small piece of the model on it just to test and see how it works.
Yeah. I almost think that Riley held back a little too much with some of the weathering, and that's why I said encourage the weathering in addition later on down the line. And rust is difficult because it can get very overpowering very quickly. Weathering is one of those things where you want to do slowly build up, because you can't do a lot and then take it away. You have to do it bit by bit and build it. And weathering is fun as well because it's almost like layering. You can layer up weathering so that you get like this age, you know, showing through time. This is what's happening to this model or this specific unit, and building it through. And so that it's difficult to do, but you don't want to overpower it not too quickly either. So
Make the plague marine like he's had a cold for like 10,000 years.
yeah. All right, we got Adam B.
With their Eldari,
The Incarn.
The Incarn.
the transition is really nice on this model.
Cool choice of the teal as well.
Yeah,
Yes.
teal with the purple is very good. I like the brightness of the sword too.
Like the transition from the dark into the purple, that is really nice. A little bit of a gap in the hairline here, but
Base is well executed
The
as
bell
well.
is-
I mean, the
base
model
is
does a lot
really
of work
well
for
done.
it, but
Yeah.
I mean, you gotta love a good model
the
that
little
takes
gems
care of
in-
its base
the gems
as
in
well.
the purple are really
Oh
pointed
yeah,
out
the
as well.
soul gems are in the storm there.
Yep. I will say so a couple things of feedback. The sword going from black to the purple's good. I would build a little bit of dark purple in between, so that's not such a harsh transition between, because it looks like it's just pure black, and that also means that you miss some of the gold trim on the blade in there as well. You can probably brighten up some of the soul gems too to really make them pop. I used to be an Eldar player, so all that I did was.
I mean, we established that your first model was a jet bike.
Yep. Yeah. So I love the color choices though, because they really pop and sing. Where you want this model to be very visible to everything on the table. You want it to be very, distinct on the table, especially when you're wanting to battle things out. So I think you did a good job on that, especially on the highlighting for the fire. I think you could have done a little more on the bottom side, or like pick out some of these faces a bit too. But otherwise, this is a great place to be. In like having the contrast well established, well built, even adding in some of the extra teal in between, like in some areas, would really pop to Kelsey's point.
Yeah, transitions kind of nicely into the storm there on the front. I see. Yeah, first immediate draws, like I love the color of like the little storm swelling around. It looks like a bit of contrast with some dry brushing, from what I can tell. Tell me if I'm wrong. And also, I'll give you props here as well. Handling the transition from the storm to the hair is tricky because you're going up to that pure white hair from that purple, and like deciding where does the storm end and the hair begin is always really tricky, especially in models like these where they're blending, and we also don't know if you painted this all completely assembled, which makes it extra fun.
Yeah, I was gonna say down here in that little area, really
trying to get in between and everything.
Even want to begin to imagine that.
Yeah. And to the point, there's a few spots where I think some highlights would be really cool. I think it'd be really cool, on the front of the Incarn themselves, highlighting up the knee a little bit, just adding, I know we talked about, the white. I think here a white mixing, like just a little bit of it to just pop up for the highlight would make it nice and cold. That could really like draw some attention to like the Incarn's face, like the knee there, even some of the chest. I think the storm does have some of that, but to your point, the faces would be very distinct details, so in that way they're not like just blending into the entirety of the storm. Well, they're actually popping.
That's a good spot to have that teal be the blend, and then you can have that teal continue throughout the rest of the model rather than being just the Incarn itself.
Or even having it be an edge highlight on the faces.
Something like that. Because I do see the teal kind of blends out from the beginning of the storm coming off of the Incarn. But even throwing a little bit of that out there. And of course, again, base looks great. Very straightforward. You've got the tufts, you've got the Eldari ruins. I mean, it's always awesome when a model does a lot of the terrain work and a lot of the base work for you. Because then texture, dry brush, poppity boop.
Yeah, you're done.
Just turned Italian for a second.
The one thing that I will point out is that this looks like it's a majority contrast, and I know that we were discussing this yesterday about contrast paints, speed paints, things of that nature. They do so much heavy lifting for you, an incredible amount of heavy lifting.
They're my favorite.
Yeah, that you don't have to go back and really guess about. You don't have to, you can kind of skip at least half of your paint job in getting it in place. The one thing that I will say is you'll want to make sure that you do more than just that. A lot of high-end professional painters these days are actually starting to introduce contrast paints and speed paints into their lineups.
They're starting steps.
Yeah, like Richard Gray, Heraldez, Marco. They're not just Mecha. Like they're doing contrast paints as their starting point.
Golden Demon winners.
Yeah,
right,
I mean they're building that to get rid of a ton of work that they had.
The layering and everything else with it.
Yeah, because why not? You build up your gradient in the background, you slap over your contrast paint. Now you're most of the way there. Now I can work on highlighting shadows, and I can do all those additional steps to make it shine. But the point is, you need to be able to do those additional steps. You can't just let it sit on just contrast paint and leave it alone. You need to add more to the contrast paint than that.
Yeah.
Well, and as somebody who is always looking to push things even a little bit further than just going from just contrast, trying something new and adding in something, so like OSL would look really great on those rocks at the bottom of the base.
Down here.
And then even reflecting some of the OSL into her hair would be really nice from the storm. Being able to have your eye follow from the base all the way up to the face, and just showing how much extra little things you have in there would make that pop even more.
Also, if that blade was brush blended, that is fantastic.
This is really good blend.
That is clean.
Yeah, it is very clean.
But yeah,
I think it is brush blended.
Yeah,
it looks like it.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm like I said at the beginning, I'm a speed painter, so contrasts are a lot of my starting point for a lot of my models, and sometimes close to my ending point. But I mean, the good news is with contrast, there's always a paint color that matches your contrast. So when you do make a mistake, you don't have to put Wraithbone, put white back on, or anything like that. You can actually genuinely switch to an acrylic or something that'll match that and clean it up.
Yep.
Which is always fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Chris is getting the close up here on the blade, so we can kind of get a better look.
Another thing you could also do with those, with the gems, you were mentioning the gems, brighten those up, but you could also, when you put the varnish on, if you do matte varnish and then you go back with like art coat,
gloss varnish,
a gloss varnish to put over all those gems, it'll make them pop that much more.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Sick model though. Always
Yeah,
nice.
this is
model.
such a fantastic model. So,
And this is why I have 14 armies. This is how they get you.
it is.
Alright.
Well, thank you, Adam, for your entry. We'll be visiting more of Adam's stuff throughout the event. So,
Hope the feedback was helpful.
oh, something that I will say, we've got people jumping into the Dwarven Axe Discord. We have a Dwarven Axe Discord now, so that it's all things hobby all the time. I believe Chris can correct me if I'm wrong over there, but we have a link at some point. People can jump in. Cool, he's nodding his head. So we'll have a link where you can jump in and join. The Discord is for all things hobby, so we'd love to see any work in progress, finished works,
Talking
questions, comments.
talking about frustrations of a model or anything like that.
Can confirm. They're especially those two are in there plenty. Every time I posted one, I think I've gotten a response in 5 minutes. So like, what do you guys do for work?
I live on Discord.
I live on Discord.
I clearly live on
I'm a
Discord.
professional Discorder.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, I try. I know that there's a lot of professionals that have won previous events at Dwarven Axe. There's a lot of, I would consider, very professional painters that are in there that give feedback or thoughts, and they give honest feedback. That's what's best about it.
Yeah.
Is that people do not hold back. They give praise and they give critiques. You know, you can go in there and go, hey, I need, what do I do here? I'm stuck. And there will be 6 opinions hitting at you that are all very well thought out and also very, I would say, helpful.
Right.
So they're not just kind of vapid, like, oh, it looks great, and then you leave it alone. This is a place where it's really going to hit home.
And they're good at distinguishing style too. Like
Yes.
they can tell when something's a stylistic choice, so they won't like it's versus, like, oh well, you should change this, and they're pretty good about identifying like this is your particular style. This is how I'd enhance it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
All right.
So thank you for that submission, Adam. It was really good.
Yeah. So we got Derek V with Drazar.
I love Drazar.
Drazar.
Love the Drukari.
It's such a dynamic pose.
It is.
Absolutely. He's a model favorite.
Yeah, the blending's really good. I do like you've done a lot of edge highlighting, which helps make some of the metals pop right away. To me, same with the red on the
tassel.
Yeah, the tassels and the extras. They pop out nicely.
Individual strands. Yeah, you can see the highlight strands.
Yeah, I might highlight a bit more on those just because it kind of gets lost in there with the wash. So I might highlight a bit more on that, but I do like the color choice where it's got that teal aspect to it going into the red, so it's like this nice contrast, high contrast to it.
Especially because it tucks up under that armor piece right at the very, very top. It's just like, because it's like tassel hair, question mark?
Yeah, top knot-ish.
Top knot, yeah. Very stoic Drazarans.
The blending on the horns is really well done.
Absolutely.
On the face mask.
Yeah. Yeah. The gems on this one are, I want to say some of them are using the GW
technical,
gem paint.
the technical gems.
The gem paint, which is really fun to use. You slap down some metals or metallic, and then you put this stuff over top, and it just makes a nice gem color. I think if you wanted to, you could push a bit more on the basing. I do like the subtlety of the gray on the Eldar pieces there, but I would say doing something more with the vine would be good. It's just kind of black with a little bit of highlights, and then adding some additional things onto the base. Even a dead branch would go a long way. I feel, to that model.
Or Tuft.
Yeah. Well, and this is actually a model that if you're going for like a dead world, I can see not wanting a tuft,
right?
Because then it's kind of not really dead anymore. But in some ways, it needs more than just the basing and then texture paint. You want something more to it that makes it pop.
Well, even
skulls, yeah, a dead branch, something that indicates that dead world aspect.
Right. No, I was gonna say, like, you could very well easily go into your backyard and grab a twig that fell off of a tree, break it in half, and then make sure you kill the bacteria and stuff off of it first.
What was the...
But then you could prime that and then paint it look like it's like decaying and breaking down and doing that sort of aspect on it as
Absolutely.
well. I know I did that on my tree lord.
Yep,
way back in the day.
I do love the variety of the Shattered Soul Stones. Those are like that always is a nice little aspect because it's Drazar. Drazar's collected it. And gotta give you props where props are due. The white on the face, clean. White is a very, very, very difficult color.
And you can tell that it was built up.
Yep.
So it wasn't just slapping white down, calling it good. It was built up from like grays and purples into like this nice highlighted helm. So it pops more against the darker contrast.
Yep. And you can tell in the eyes as well, there's the darker settling of the shade or whatever that was used in there. So there's a depth to the eye and to like the part of the mask where it does glow green, which I always appreciate that little detail. I mean, yeah, such a cool model. I guess if I was going to pick something to I would punch up the highlight a little bit more on the armor, just a little. Nothing too crazy, because obviously they have very especially Incubi have that dark. I can tell you use the right color, kind of like blue green, that GW recommends there. But yeah, I punched up just like a hair, and I know it can be really difficult because sometimes, especially Drukhari armor layers on itself really, really closely. But even just on the leg there, or any of the arm where the raised edges that if you were to shine like a straight light on it, you'd see it. But otherwise, I mean, hey, it's Drazar. It's a win. Drazar's always a win.
For suggestions for that, I've seen people on YouTube like Ninjon and a few other people will actually take pictures with the light in the direction that they want it to be in, and that way they can pull it up as a reference and see exactly where each light is being hit on the model. So they can hit those highlights.
And I did notice the nice little bit of purple blending on the back sash there as well.
My actual critique to that point too would be that you want to push that more, and in some of the other areas, because this purple sash has a bit of highlighting, but the rest of them really don't. They don't have a ton of highlighting to them, and that's one thing that I wish that they had more of. And you can definitely tell from the rest that they have the ability to do edge highlighting on very small areas.
Oh, absolutely.
So doing so on these sashes should be child's play. And I think that you could really push it a bit more with that blending. So
yeah. Oh, it looks great.
Yeah,
great.
Wonderful, fun model it looks like.
Yeah, fantastic model. So thank you, Derek. Appreciate it. What's up next? What do we got? Oh, okay.
We have a piece of paper. No.
Judging the piece of paper.
Yeah.
Is it a great piece?
Will Pros.
Assassin.
I'm kind of a fan of the teal green.
Oh yeah. My first army for Eldar was this dark teal. It's an old color. GW used to make it, but Vallejo makes it now, called Scurvy Green.
Ooh, that is a good color.
And it's like this dark blue-green teal, and my entire army was that color.
So along the same veins as Incubi Darkness, or
no, it's brighter than Incubi Darkness.
Yeah, it's kind of it kind of approaches more of that jade.
Jade. Yeah, it's like a really dark jade.
Yeah, they really haven't replenished that on the GW side, because is that a model, Scurvy? Is that a model or is that a game color?
No, so that's what Vallejo calls it. It was an older color that GW discontinued back in 5th edition. I mean, it's old.
No good lord.
And it's a gorgeous color.
There's a lot more companies that are creating jades, which I really appreciate. Like Monument Hobbies just got its jade. Tooth and Coats just got its jade.
Yeah, and that dark jade is really cool. Man, that face is really well done.
I know. I was looking at that head. It was the eyes like perfectly centered. Mm-hmm. It's really well done.
The blending in the purples and the teals are really well done. Basing is phenomenal. You have a definitely a appreciation for light values. Everything's a bit dusky though, or like blended in this dusky kind of fashion, but it's consistent throughout the model. So it almost feels like it's an artistic choice, especially with the basing down at the bottom on the steps. It is so. I love the purple blending in addition to it. That it shines really nicely.
It's very well done. I almost wonder if you could boost that base a little bit with some pigment powders.
Yes, potentially.
Make it more dusty, like it look like there's a layer of dust that's been settled there for a while.
Well, I think some of the loss too is like there's a sheen on it. So they definitely put like gloss varnish or something along those lines in there. And gloss varnish is great for playable models if you go over it again with a different varnish, because gloss varnish is much more hard than others, so it doesn't rub off nearly as much. The problem is that if you get that in places, you lose some of the value that you might be looking for elsewhere. So it that gloss varnish is very shiny and bright, and it pulls your eye immediately to it, which you may not want in some of those areas. But like the blending is fantastic in this model. Really love it.
I would concur, especially just like on the chest and that perched up leg, like that escalation of purple. Mm-hmm. Jade and purple really just goes really well together. It just catches the eye really quickly. And yeah, the face looks incredible. I love he dotted the eye, literally. Mm-hmm. And there's some nice blending on the tongue too, hanging out of the severed head, which is fantastic.
Like the decay on the face actually shines through really nicely too.
Yeah. And yeah, I would agree, some of the highlighting and maybe just a little bit of the base, but for the most part, I actually kind of like, because something tells me there's definitely a bit of style choice here. It feels very not necessarily like comic booky, but there's definitely some like artistic element to it because of the way it kind of gradients, and some of it's like really aggressive. It hits really nicely though.
It's kind of got a mix of like painterly and grimdark.
Oh, that's a good painterly, kind of like a oil painting kind of vibe to it, which is fantastic, and it does add a nice little.
Again, I'm a big fan of that.
Oh, absolutely.
I love painterly style. It's such a fun, interesting style.
Yeah.
You can add so much to it.
I think you could punch up a little bit more on the blade, just to get a little bit higher on it, and even just kind of bring it in a little bit further, especially like if the way it's catching light even as like kind of a power weapon sort of deal. You could actually do a little bit more there, but for the most part though, it doesn't. I think the important part is it doesn't distract from the rest of the model. Right. You have your attention where you want your attention on the model itself. So that is always a win, because I think sometimes you draw attention to the wrong areas, but this one actually, like, wherever I look, there's something interesting and appealing to the model, which is always a win.
And I think with learning the best way to know where your attention lies is by doing, and this is in artist terms, case studies. So you basically look at the model without even putting any paint on it or anything. You either have it fully assembled, or you look at it and you visualize, okay, what is the most important aspect of this model? And then you pinpoint those. You can write a note on to yourself so you remember when you're working on it what you want the main focus to be, so that you know where the best highlighted areas should be at, so that you remember. And it'll show your little bit of homework that you do before the model, or even start putting any paint in the model, helps.
I think the two places that I would point out that I wish there was more of was in the silver areas. It's lacking. It doesn't have nearly as much interesting value to the color or the highlighting as, like, say, the teal or the purple. And then also the differentiation on the shoes for the soles. They are the same color as the boot, and they could be a different color so that they indicate that change in material to better represent that. Because you can definitely see that there's a line on each one of them. She has a slight heel on both, or at least a platform on them for a sole there, and that could be a little better highlighted, I think. Same with some of the leather straps could have a little bit more to them in that, because you probably added a bit, because I can see it on the top of here. They're nicely highlighted, but then down here it kind of gets lost. I don't know if that was varnish or if that was just a stylistic thing or it got lost in something. Those are the three things that I pick out as like an initial, hey, look, here's the feedback.
Right.
You do gotta love that the blending's readable from a distance too.
Yes.
Blending is always tricky because it's
like,
gotta be readable from a distance and up close, and it balances really nicely.
I think that up close, I see these small details of like, this is how you can improve this. But from a distance, like, it's just snap pops out at you.
Yep.
Even that face that she's holding, it is really readable. So
yeah, it's really well done.
Yeah, super fun.
Fantastic entry.
Yeah,
Thank
absolutely.
You, Will.
Thank you, Will.
All right.
We're being paged by our upper managers that we're to take a break. So this just in. So yeah, we'll take a quick 5, and then we'll be back with more entries. We have fantasy coming up, so stay tuned for more.
See you soon.
I'll see you soon. We're back.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. This is still Dwarven Axe Q3. Thank you for joining us.
And now we've
finally been back.
we're back. And now we're finally hopping into fantasy.
Fantasy.
And we're gonna start off with another one from Adam.
Adam B.
And we got the Light of Eltharion.
I'm not even gonna try. I'm just gonna say the
Light of Eltharion. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
This makes me really want to work on my Lumineth Realm Lords. I will put that into perspective. It is a really cool model.
It is. The model itself is fantastic.
I love that the sculpt of it is just absolutely well done. And I really like the white-blue frills that you did on the top of the model.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the blue versus the bone with the black, it definitely pops out nicely. And then I will say the basing is really well done. It looks cool. To your point before, if you can let the sculpt do a lot of the basing work, that helps. But they definitely added in and painted like the wheat, the grass wheat, and then adding some tufts and some texture paint, so it doesn't feel like they just
Different kind of tufts too.
Yeah, they didn't just leave it alone either. So it definitely helps. I will say that there are seam lines. So you need to be careful on seam lines. Make sure you fill those in, sand them down. Make sure that you can, if worst case, you hide them behind a tuft or something like that.
Have grass growing from the crack so it looks more natural.
So it looks more natural, or widen it out and make it look like it's a natural crack.
Or even having moss growing on top of that.
Oh shoot! I forgot the paint that I was gonna remind you on. Anyway. Oh well.
You're welcome.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry for dragging you along in my brain. I will say, I know that we had been looking at some of these models beforehand and kind of critiquing them as we were going. And one of the critiques that we had was the cloak was really, it needed some addition. And I know James, you had some thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, in a lot of models is not just fantasy, but also 40K, like the new lion, the cloaks. There's two different ways to kind of go about it. So I can see, that this definitely has a bit of a contrast, either that or it maybe just some of the highlighting. There is some really light highlighting here, and there's two very different ways to go about it. Number one, you could just punch the color all the way up to being a brighter sort of highlight, or you can do more of a subtle one. It looks like you kind of went with more of a subtle one for this one. I mean, I like the color choices here, and again, the nice part about this sculpt as a whole is it's got enough detail and enough going on where you can let a lot of the model just do a lot of the work. Whether you're using a wash or whether you're using like a thin down contrast, I can definitely tell like it looks like this up here is a thematic blue. One of my personal favorites.
Yeah, very nice.
It's
fantastic.
blue. We like blue.
Yeah. And I do even like some of the highlighting here on kind of the headband tassel coming off the back, like that nice teal. teal's the theme of the day, and that's fantastic because
I'm okay with that.
I'm always okay with that.
We need more dark sea blue though.
We need more dark sea blue. Gotta be, you know, I have a prescription and all. No, the prescription.
Fever.
I'm having
I
a
got fever. Yeah.
Don't mind me. I'm just having a strong, and my prescription is more dark sea blue.
I was gonna say Rob Seeley out of nowhere just perked up his ears.
Dark sea blue.
Yeah.
What?
Dark sea blue.
Dark sea blue.
Someone
Where?
Someone said the words.
Yep. Gold looks nice. I can tell there's some highlighting on some of the gold bits as well. Yeah, I mean it is a really cool model, and I really love the way the base was done.
Yeah.
Base looks very nice. You have variety to it, so it's not just this one static appearance to it. I would say maybe even punching up a little bit more color on the gem on the shoulder. It kind of transitions to, I am kind of reading it as kind of a grayish kind of vibe towards
kind
it.
of a purple
Yeah,
gray.
purple gray. Versus I think what you maybe want to do is punch that up to a brighter purple.
Yeah.
And maybe even kind of just do kind of like a gem highlight to it. But again, fantastic model, and we can later we can also show we all brought in some models, but it looks like we might have a question or something.
Mac Maker says, "King for the blue, stay for the teals."
Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate you. Always a win. But yeah, we all brought models of our own, so in that way, just in terms of like the feedback we're providing, we can show you some of the ways that we apply some of our feedback on
Also
our.
critique our own work.
Yes,
Yeah.
we could definitely do
We're
that.
just the best part about all this is we get to tear ourselves down. It's very destructive.
Trust me when I say that we are our own worst critics.
True story.
So
Everybody's
bad.
that.
It's so bad.
Yeah, but again, this is a fantastic model. The armor does look great. There's a lot here that's a great beginning to it, and
Yeah.
I think there's especially even just little things like punching up the cloak a little bit more will take this to the next level.
Adam also did the income, if I remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it has the same critique that I would bring up, is that most of this looks like it's contrast or base around contrast, which is fantastic as a starting point, but you can boost this a lot by just adding extra highlights of white and bone onto the armor, you know.
Especially toward the face and
Yeah.
the top of the model.
Which they kind of did, or at least let the contrast
Right.
settle nicely, but you can boost that up so much more. You can add color tones in there. You can do a lot to like even the feet, because you can also see where the highlighting was missed on the exact foot. But again, this is an excellent starting place for where I would say you're at the middle of your journey, late middle of your journey on this model, and it doesn't take much more to give additional highlights and brightness to it. So
I also
And
like
I-
the well done that they did with adding the wash into the swords to make them look like they have that little bit of
Yeah.
blue glow with
Yeah.
them. It ties it really well with the headdress of the model as well.
yeah.
And I'll definitely, with the model I brought today, I'll be able to kind of give you some visual aid in regards to cloaks and some of the blendings. That's a little bit of highlights that you can do to punch up something, because I am a contrast fiend. Anyone who's seen what I paint knows that I have plenty. So I'll be able to give you some visual aid for that as well.
That'd be good. I'm excited. Ooh, there's a bunch of. It's just Chris blasting on the Forge. If you're not on the Forge Discord, jump on the Forge Discord as well. So be there, be square.
I know some of the Age of Sigmar players have been watching in between rounds as well.
Oh, sweet, awesome.
We have
Alright.
Jamie.
Jamie, all right, and man,
Sketsies.
Dark Crystal?
Yes, it is Dark Crystal.
Yep. This is it's straight 3D print, but it is the coolest 3D
It
print.
is
That's a
awesome.
clean 3D print.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, these things.
People have nightmares about them.
I can see why. It's like a weird Zechian bird
Yeah,
that just like
yeah.
cackles like the Muppets. Like that's nightmare
Well, I mean,
fuel.
it was Jim Henson.
Yeah,
if I
Henson.
remember,
Yep.
Made them so for the Dark Crystals. So yeah, I would expect them to be nightmare fuel.
Muppet-like.
Muppet nightmare fuel. This has a lot of like awesome color transitions, but it just needs highlights.
Yes, I would agree with that. And I kind of like that it's consistent with like a lot of pooling with the washes, which makes it feel more like a Dark Crystal vibe anyways.
Yep. like that doesn't take it away from
No,
me.
it doesn't at all.
That actually adds to it. It's much more cell shaded and whatever like that. I would remove some of the sheen so that it matches the rest of the overall vibe, and that can be solved by adding the varnish, but like just some simple highlights would add so much more.
I love the stylistic choice. Like, I always love a hard contrast kind of style where you have just pure blacks versus some gradients. I mean, it's at least to me, that's how I read it. Is I read it as a stylistic choice, and I love it because it does pop. It's something that's a good way to make something readable quickly.
Yes,
which is fantastic. But I would still agree in the fact that on some of the highlights, you can do a few like just some light punch ups that kind of add a nice little vibe to it. I mean, the whites under here actually look really nice. I actually like how those look. They kind of have that frilly look to them. Mm-hmm. But even, just a few extra punch-ups on, like, the red on the arm here and, like, the crest of the back, the face. But, I mean,
and you could very well do that with putting in a little bit of, like, pale yellow with your red or your purple, and then just lightly getting the tops of it with a dry brush or anything like that.
And again, I mean, credit where credit's due. We know what this is the moment we see it.
Yes.
We can see it from the case, 10 feet away, and we know it's escape. It's from Dark Crystal. Yeah. Which is definitely an ability that you have, and there's a few other details that you can maybe punch up, but again, overall for a 3D print, this is great for
it's great.
This is like, I don't like, usually you see like the printing marks on them, and this is clean. Which is fantastic.
It's super fun. It's very readable. Very, very interesting. It keeps to the theme, the style that you're after. Yeah. The only thing that I can point out, my only critique really from it is just highlights.
Yeah. You got a few back here, which is really nice, but even just kind of smoothing out some of those transitions on there. But off to a fantastic start. Can't wait for the Nightmare Fuel later.
It's gonna be good Nightmare Fuel. Yeah.
Admittedly, this is where my nerd card gets a little revoked. I haven't watched the Dark Crystal series on Netflix.
Neither have I. I've heard it's good.
Oh, I've heard it's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is it's a great time to be a nerd.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah. No, we're getting the head shake over there.
I think it's disappointment from Chris, which is understandable. Tank. Nope.
I gotta go. I gotta.
Which one's that one? Is that Rugrats? The first Rugrats? Ting tang, wow, bing bang. Yeah.
And
don't mind us.
Yeah.
All right, what do we got next?
We got
fantasy.
Bert with
Stickman. Baxter Stickman.
So I will say, I remember coming in here a year ago, and Bert was like, "Check out my model," and showed it off, and it was. It was definitely someone that had just started painting, really excited about what he was doing. And since then, he has honed his skills just so well.
For how busy he is as a store owner.
So this is Bert, store owner Bert. And
Big beard Bert.
Yeah, and he was excitedly throwing these in last minute to the case. And just, it took me a second to realize that these were his. They were fantastic. There's, a nice subtle highlighting on the ridges, like dry brushing actually. He's picking out moss. It feels like a swamp thing in a swamp. Like there's, it's wet and mossy on the ground.
Moist.
I love the feel of it. Yeah, it gives me Tim Burton-esque kind of vibe.
It does. The eyes have been picked out.
I knew I recognized him. It's Johnny Depp. Crushed it. Oh, we got a comment question.
Ooh. So Mac Maker says the little tree dude is dope, and I agree.
Yeah.
The one now?
The little tree dude.
Yeah, Stickman.
Yeah.
The Skeksis apparently came from the Dark Crystal board game.
There's a board game?
That explains why the print is so nice.
Okay.
Board game quality. That's still pretty awesome because I know some board games have miniatures and they are raw.
Yeah, they're rough. The fern here, I think, you can buy these from the store, and they're like a paper.
Metal.
Oh, are they metal?
It might be. It's either metal or some sort of paper.
Quick, throw it at something. No.
Eat. No.
Yeah,
it's because it's Bert's model.
They're super, that's a super cool addition without any extra work that really ties in everything that you couldn't, like, you don't get just from the tuft, and I love the tall tufts, but this just adds in something that you get from a forest that grass just doesn't do for you.
The theme is consistent. It's,
Yeah.
your color palette is also very strong.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, especially for trees, the biggest thing for me for trees, whenever I see someone painting something, whether it's like Sylvaneth or anything like that, is, I mean, you can identify it's a tree based just on like the model itself, but reading the individual grains on the bark is always a huge thing for me, and this is distinct. I can see where the highlights are. I can see the darker moments where the bark is still readable, but you can tell the top parts are brighter where they're supposed to be. And like the little bits of moss around the eye, great color choice for the green there. Yeah, I mean this just fits.
And he plays with several different grains, especially with the basing material, and they don't contrast, or they're contrasting enough where you can see them all jump, but they're not like so similar that you just kind of go, oh, it's the same green. You know, they read differently with different things.
And very natural base.
Yeah.
I can tell there's a lot of organic things being used for the basing specifically, which absolutely puts it in the right spot. You know, if you were to use like a texture paste or something like that, you'd be able to tell this is definitely like, this is natural material.
Yeah.
And which really immerses it perfectly.
Or at least flocking with like some water effects on it to hold it
Yep.
down.
I think one bit, if I was to critique, Bert, please don't hate me.
Wow.
I know.
Dangerous move.
I'd pop the eye with maybe a little bit more glow.
Yes.
I would agree with that.
Just it again, already fantastic model. Love the choice of greens, the browns, like everything fits so naturalistically and it fits in the right color palette. But if you just even put like a nice little like lime green, like small dot to just kind of give it like that glow of life coming out of the tree, I think Stickman would be a lad. And that would be fantastic.
Honestly, the purple, like purple eyes on this would actually work really well.
Yeah, as long as if you punch them up to the right color.
Punch them up, because then you're getting that contrasting kind of vibe to them. In some ways, it's I think the eyes are the one thing that I look at and I'm like, yeah, I want those to be more than what they are.
I feel like you could also brighten up a little bit of the moss on there too to kind of draw it back up. Not too much more, because otherwise you're gonna make it look too out of place.
Yep, a bit of yellows and whatever that can
Right.
kind of brighten it up a bit. And there's this pale yellow right here that Monument always has. That's fantastic.
Vallejo, I think, has some interesting colors too, like that.
Yeah. Oh, we got a question, comment.
Concern?
Your friend's name, Mac Miller.
Yes.
Maker.
Yeah.
What's his?
Oh, Tyler.
Tyler. Tyler says he agrees with the eyes. The zoom in shots really show the bark. I think a little darkness on the base ties it together well too.
Absolutely.
I concur.
Thank you, Tyler.
Yeah.
So thank you, Bert,
Yeah.
for throwing that at us last minute.
Yeah, crushed it.
What's up? What's going on?
Oh,
All
okay.
right, end of the category. So we're gonna take a quick 5, and be back with some more. Stay tuned.
Yeah. Yep.
There's two entries for unit. So
Yeah,
Are you ready for a new one?
it's time.
It's time.
No, I genuinely do.
I know you want critiques. Huh? Oh, who? All right, and we're back, and we're sorry about that live mic commentary. Got a little behind the scenes.
How would you like to respond to the scandal of being heard?
I'm upset
And
and
myself.
embarrassed.
I'd like
How
to
does it
apologize
make
to my
you
wife who will get the worst of this.
Yeah, right, whatever.
How does that make you feel?
People all know that we're not behind the scenes. We're just as happy to tear apart other people's models as we are on camera.
We'll tear down our own. It's
Yeah,
fine.
we tear down our own.
I'll do it.
Chris, actually, so something. So Chris is in the background here. Wave to everyone, Chris. Hi, Chris.
There's
So-
two Chris's.
There's two Chris's.
You
The
just
Chris's,
realized.
yeah.
Yes.
So the Chris's, one of the Chris's, wants real feedback on his models, and the whole point of this is to really look at and break down models and try and give real critiques back. And sometimes that can be hard, but to grow as a painter, as an artist, as someone that you're doing something to a degree of professionality or just wanting to get better, it takes critique, it takes work, and it takes hard reflection on what you're doing, and then you need someone that is better than you or at equal level or something like that. Even people that aren't can see something that you don't or other professionals don't, and that is good feedback. But good, getting good criticism is what you need to grow as a painter.
And it can be difficult because you'll, especially when you're painting something for a competition, you're spending hours and hours on single details, and maybe that's a detail that we miss somewhere or something like that. But I mean, on a very real level, like you said, the critique is growth, and as long as you take it with that sort of grain of salt, with that kind of growth aspect in mind, you'll only get better.
Yep.
And either way, all the models we've seen so far have been fantastic. So you're all off to a great start, regardless.
So
Agreed.
one thing I'm going to point out for Chris
As
is
for
that
this unit,
this is unit, by the way. Sorry, we've got 2 entries for unit, so this is one of the.
yeah, he just sci-fi single, just threw in right after fantasy. How many is this? 11? 11?
Yeah. The woman that has this whip. The whip needs more to it. It's just kind of a flat silver cut. Hey, I can look at you and actually give you that. The silver is just a little bit flat on that. It doesn't have a lot to it more than that. Same with the gun. The 2 big details for me on her specifically is the gun and the whip. And both of them have kind of the same suffering from it, where there isn't as much highlighting or I don't want to say thought put into it, but just not. It needs more to detail than what it is. But that's just the rest of her, fantastic. It's just those 2 points that really stand out. And one of the other models had a bunch of jars or tubes or something like that with liquid in them, and he crushed that. Those look
I agree.
great.
Yeah, oh yeah, her,
Actually, super
her
good.
it's on their back.
Yeah, and same on this. This one has it too.
Yeah, did a good job creating that.
Mm-hmm. I think the blue weapons need more to them, just a bit more. Maybe a little more highlighting.
Don't forget to look at your plaid.
Oh yeah, the plaid.
The king of plaid.
Oh, don't call me that.
The Great Scotsman.
This plaid's really good. At this level of detail, it's really hard to capture a good plaid too. So having plaid that shines, or even plaid at all, is really awesome to see. You did a really good job on the purple armor though, blending it. Because when you get close, it pops more. When you get farther away, it just becomes purple, which I don't think is a bad thing. It's very awesome to see, along with the skin tones. These skin tones are freaking fantastic.
They're all consistent throughout all the models.
Yes.
The bases look really nice. Fits the Necromunda vibe.
Well, and even some of the details on the blood stains on each of the bases. There's a handprint on this one.
Oh, there is? That's cool. I like that. That's a really long hand.
It just and also there's a OSL on this model. Not only glow from the gun, but you also get the glow from the eye. And it's not terribly overbearing. I would think that there wouldn't be too much red on the bottom of the tabard from her, from the eye. but I feel like you got pretty much everywhere else that you would probably hit that OSL.
My wife would love this hair color. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Tyler says, fantastic blends on the hair, overall color scheme. Cleanly done. I'd like to see a little more wear and tear / grime to the overall look, but I think that that's a stylistic preference.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that from just a purely stylistic, because I am much more of a weathering kind of thing.
They're well-funded game.
Yeah, they're a well-funded game. That's true.
Freshly stocked.
The one thing that is consistent throughout these models that I keep picking out time and time again of something to work on is the weapons. They just have a silver, maybe an extra highlight, maybe a shade. They don't have a lot to them. Adding things like a little bit of blood, a little bit of grime, something to make the a glow from a power weapon, something to separate them out. I mean, one of them, Kelsey grabbed it already. Yeah, I think it's her. She actually has a weapon, and it has a power weapon on it. So, power weapon needs. So, I mean, you could add just like a nice glow or lightning effect on it, and it would just bring it up to the next level. That's my main feedback. Is some of the weapons feel a little bit flat, but like everything else is so really well done. It's
Another comment.
Tyler wants to see more wear, like the guns being reused and scary. How would one go about doing that?
Adding more wear to the guns. How would you do that?
I'm deaf as a post. For wear on the guns, so I know I've said this in the past, but I constantly have this feedback from Adam Savage from Mythbusters. He does Tested and that stuff now, but his background is model making in ILM. And one of the things that he brought up was, if you want to wear something, wear down like a weapon, what you do is you have it cleanly painted, and then you grime it up with like a wash or something like that, and then you clean it, and then you grime it up, and then you clean it, and you do that 3 or 4 times, because you're not going to be able to wipe away all of the grime from any time that you try and clean a weapon, especially in the field. So it will build up this grime in the background. So adding in some grime into like little crevices and little corners and things, and at this scale it could be even just like a simple wash or an addition of a pigment powder. Personally, when I do a little bit of wear and tear on guns, I like to add the discoloration of shooting or that heat staining.
Yeah,
and that can be done with watered down wash. And I do like sepia for 100%, and then half of that is then red, and then half of that is purple, and half of that is blue, so that you're having the entire time, but then you get this nice gradient of color. But you need to do it with watered down, otherwise it stains the heck out of everything. So but that's how I like to add grime, especially if they're oiled guns, well used guns. Then you don't want to do a ton of rust or effects like that. But a little bit can go a long way, or even a brown or earth-based color for weathering powder can add a lot too if you water it down a bit too. So
yeah, I mean, 2 details that stand out to me is the lady with the red hair. Love the leopard print on the top, like up on her bald spot. Or like on her shaved head spot. She's got a leopard pattern. She's got a leopard pattern there.
That's
that
awesome.
is sick. Number 2, skin tones. Big win on the skin tones.
Oh yeah, no, these skin tones are phenomenal.
And the highlights are in the right spots on the raised muscles. Very readable.
And
I love a good skin tone that reads the muscles very cleanly.
I also love that each model has their own personality.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It feels like they're all a unit, a singular unit, but you took the time and care for each one, so that they didn't just feel samey.
Except the twins.
Yeah. And go ahead.
I keep looking back at this hair because my wife loves like bubblegum pink.
Twins.
The bubblegum's very cool.
Yeah,
I love that color
that's
choice.
awesome. Yeah, no, she would love this. This is like this is her jam. No, this right here is just fantastic work. And looking at them in the case is very different than looking at them up close. You have really identified how to take something that looks good at a distance and then amplify it when you look at it up close. So excellent job from that. Yep. It is a good. He's taking his models away.
Oh yeah, I was just the one last little bit I wanted to add here is just
Sorry.
no, just like so. I really like the glow on the weapon here for leopard hair lady. It could be just a preferential thing, at least for me personally. The glow looks solid in a few spots. There's a few spots like on her face here where it's a little bit much, at least for me. Just and again, that could just be preferential. I like OSL, but I like very minimal OSL.
She does have a.
She kind of
glow eye.
Yeah, she's got the glow eye there, and it kind of gives me like a Two-Face vibe because it's clean on the
To
ones.
be fair, does have a scar on his wall.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, because that's what I was trying to figure out. Is it like I do see a little bit of the scarring up on the top there, but
the problem is if you want to do an OSL like that, you have to differentiate between like the scarring of face, which is going to be more red, than like a red weapon. You'd rather go for like a green or purple weapon that would then go away from that, or even a yellow, so that it's close but differentiates from.
And I can't tell 100%, but I feel like there wouldn't be a ton of glow or much of any glow underneath the leg there, just because the weapon's radiating light out from the side, top, and the other side here, so it'd be right beneath her. But again, I'd say the highlighting though on like the chest here and the shoulder, that's fantastic. That's very clean blended.
Well, and Chris, you mentioned that this was like a first attempt at OSL and something like that. I was like,
the blending looks great.
Yeah, which I would say is, definitely trying new things on models and seeing what
At least
doesn't. It was not me this time. My hands were
and it was his own models.
Yeah, they were his own models.
And today we'd like to say goodbye to that Necromunda gang that just fell off the hive city of the box.
Yeah. Did they survive? They landed on carpet. Some bases, okay.
Okay.
Alright.
That's a future Christmas.
F's in chat, please.
Yeah.
Pay for the respects.
Pour one out for the homies.
I will remember you.
Don't do that.
No. Oh,
No, wait, really don't.
That's the other commercial. That's not good.
The mics are sad.
Yeah. We're not about to go into the arms of an angel.
No. Not at all. No.
For just 25 cents a day.
For just 25 cents
You
a
two
day.
can fund Necromunda.
And give them new equipment.
So I know that I would like to thank the Forge for hosting us here for
I don't.
Dwarven Axe.
Do we have to every time?
Every time.
Every time.
Every 10.
Probably.
Every 10.
Yes, thank you to the Forge for hosting us. As always, they are a great sponsor and partner in Dwarven Axe work.
Great community. Flat out.
Yeah, they're okay.
I suppose, we're here.
Yeah, we're here.
They took us in, I
They put up
guess.
with us.
We got another
That one from
will in our second submission for unit.
Okay, so this does have that staining on it. For weathering on it. So
Love that navy blue color choice.
this feels very Signar from War Machine.
Yeah. Kind of like an Imperial Agents.
Yep.
Rogue Trader kind of vibe. There's a lot of
There's a lot of Baroque kind of.
very clean.
Officer influence. So is this from Necromunda as well?
Voidsman, I want to say.
So this is a new unit, isn't it?
Yeah. I can't tell if these are the exact models though. So if you're in chat there, Will, let us know where these ones came from. I like the weathering on the weapons. There's like the metallic scratches that you would see from like repeated use, which is really nice. This officer looks fantastic. The medals on his chest, different colors. And I do like the blends of the blues.
Yep.
Where it highlights.
I will say that there's some overwashing. Some cleanup needs to be done in some areas. Some of the back of the cloaks and where the golds are. There's a little bit of overwashing or staining on the blues. there's like the small details you've really picked out. And this has that dirty, streaky look to it. That,
Yeah, we got the exhaust here
Yep.
on the chain gun.
Yep. And there's just this dirty streakiness to it that really adds a nice, like, almost cell shade comic book vibe to it.
This has a very strong comic book vibe, and
Which
it
I love.
yeah.
I really like
kind
it.
of a Judge Dredd-ish, but
Yeah.
like a
Yes.
neon Judge Dredd,
Yeah.
cyberpunky.
Yeah, cyberpunk style. And each one has its own, each model has its own vibe to it, which is really fun.
That's true.
They're all dynamically posed. The skin tones are really well done. You know, there's a lot to love about them, with like the whites having some gradient. Or this one, the white like sleeve
Yeah,
is missing a bit.
I like the antique antique kind of vibe of the metals.
Yep.
Like that reads really nicely. I'm always a fan of the way that those look.
Love that style.
And I will
It's
say,
used, but polished.
Yes. This is a good way of doing that weathering where it feels worn.
Yep.
You know, it's not quite clean. So, you know, adding in those, you know, having a darker metal, doing a wash over it, doing a streak of a lighter color, doing a, you know, maybe a subtle wash on top of that, just building up your colors so that you have that.
picking up the beard on this lad too.
Yeah,
if you can read facial hair, that is always fantastic because it's such a defining feature, and that's really nice. I will say the one thing that I would also follow up on is the bases, though consistent, I don't think have the consistent amount of attention. Like good
Yes.
example is this guy here with the two skulls in the base. It doesn't have anything popping out of it versus the guy with the chain gun. He's got like the radiation kind of glow or like the goop kind of going on there.
Yeah, and then like the base on this one has like nice highlighting on the metal bits, but it's not the same highlighting as on this one.
Yeah.
The commander, the officer, has a ton of details that are really well picked out. And that's
Do love
really
the
good.
officer.
The problem that I have is that like this sash on the side feels like it's so as opposed to the rest of the model, which feels dirty and has that nice tone to it. The white needs a bit more to it that like the cufflinks on a lot of them have, where it's this it has like yellows and reds kind of blended into it, and you're missing that on the sash. It feels like it's just kind of left alone and forgotten about, and I wish there was more to it than that.
The other thing, consistency with the bases as well. There's a lot of scratch marks and stuff on this base, but there's nothing on this one.
Yeah.
So it's having, if you're gonna do like scratch marks of silver from the brass, especially if you're doing it as a cohesive unit, make sure you do it consistently throughout the entire set.
Yeah, these still look fantastic though.
Yeah, they do.
I love the choice of the blue. I love how there's a lot of blends on the models that look very, very nice.
Yes.
I'd maybe pop up a little bit of the skin tone on the officer's face.
Yeah.
Just of one or two. Honestly, if you spent, I'd say even just an hour more on each one of these with just little highlights and cleanups, it would jump up a whole nother level.
It would,
Right.
it would go up a whole.
I mean, these are already like super, super fantastic. Obviously, you know, we're here judging, so we get nitpicky.
Yep.
But Will, crushing it, dude.
Yeah, no, this
Love the
Yes,
style.
it's
Love
great.
the
great,
style.
yeah. That very dirty
Comic
dirty
book,
yeah,
bold,
comic book,
contrast.
I mean, as opposed to his assassin, which was the one that we looked at.
Yes.
before,
Right.
The assassin doesn't have the same kind of streakiness, which is really good because it means that you have styles that you can jump into and out of.
Yeah,
And that's
variation.
that's not always easy
No.
to keep
No.
separate.
No, it's not. So being able to have that differentiation is really solid. Though it does, it shares some of that painterly style. This unit, though, felt less painterly, more grim dark, while the assassin felt more painterly.
Which is which is still really nice because that diversification is
Yeah.
it's tools in the tool chest, man.
Yeah.
Tools in the tool
What
chest.
is good is if you have a style that you like going with, you can kind of have them mix and mash, and then when you put them next to each other, they're not so garishly different,
Yep.
but they're distinct, but they're not like so different. So it's
I'd
a
agree
good
with
thing
that.
to have. So excellent.
That was
fantastic entry.
That was
Another fantastic.
awesome. which ends unit, our unit category.
Long live a unit.
So we are
What an
going.
absolute unit.
We're gonna hop into our vehicle monster category, and then this is Dan
This is Minkus.
Minkus. So this was definitely a model that he's been working on for a while, and he has been posting in the Discord, which has been really awesome to see.
Nice little kit bash.
Yes, more Votan. Love Votan. I love the amount of time he took to make the designs
Yes.
and get those painted up.
Yeah, it has a very fall, like fall leaves vibe to it.
Pumpkin spice.
Oh yeah, it is the PSL season.
It's coming.
For Minkus right now, I will say Rock and Stone, brother. Rock and Stone.
Stone.
Luck has, need keeps, toil earns. Clearly I play Warhammer.
Deep Rock Galactic.
Rock Galactic. You got a Rock and Stone.
Yeah.
Calling over Molly. So right off the bat, there's this differentiation between this style on the armor panels and then like the rest of the model overall. I wish that he could take some of the stylistic choices from this and present them to the rest of the model. Even having this pattern on some of the metals would for like a lighter color on this metal to pop it up another stage, because I love this design. I love what he's doing with this, but I think if he presented it to the rest of the model, it would break up some of the monotony of kind of the washed out metals. And he does it on the back here, where it's like this bright glow, and he does a really good job of capturing that glow effect. But a lot of the detail,
You have some message.
bringing it back, boys, for Rock and Stone.
Yep. There's a message on the bottom.
There's a message on the bottom. But yeah,
Well, and he 3D printed the back door
yes,
of that.
Oh,
as
that's
well.
true.
Yes.
Yeah, that is.
which is, you know, it definitely pops.
Yeah, cool kit bash. I mean, putting tracks on Sagittar
Yep.
is really cool.
Yeah, and like some of the extra details, I want you just to pick out some extra details along the way. Coloring the tread a different color, adding in some extra gray or blue would really make it stand out. Yeah, even just a metallic would be really good on it. But there's a lot of detail on this thing that you could then take and just bring up to the next, notch it up, and it would really pop out. Because I think you're at a point now where it's just detail work.
You painted the inside of the cockpit, so that's already a win.
Wow.
Oh, we got a comment
We got
question.
a comment question.
It's hard to make dark flat panels pop. Also, more attention on the missiles.
Yeah. I mean, it can be really difficult to make some panels pop. I mean, I know for at least my Votan, I used my airbrush, and I just had a darker color to begin with, and then I just specifically raised the color on each panel, and then the little edge highlight popped a lot. But this one obviously has a pattern to it, which can make that tricky, because then when you go into edge highlight just the soft edges of the panels, you don't want to go too aggressively, because then it just takes away from the pattern.
Yeah.
I would say on some of these panels, I really like the pattern because it's very clear and distinct, like you'd expect it to be. And then some panels get a little dirtier versus some of the others. And I got to point out, I'm not sure if these guns are done, because they're just kind of the pale, the pale prime. I don't know if that's primer or something there.
Or something on it.
Yeah. But I mean, again, painted the inside of the cockpit, so that's already a big win.
Yeah.
I know I bounced back and forth 8 million times, and I see a painted screen up on the top one as well, which is also very awesome. Love the gradient on the back though, especially for that door. That does look fantastic. And of course, I am a huge Votan fan. Love them.
Space
Yeah.
Wars.
Space Wars.
Space Wars. Yeah, and to that comment online, I would agree. The picking out some of the missile details, because he has the little lens on the viewfinder is really nicely picked out. But yeah, the missiles just need that extra little bit of color. Even if you wanted to keep them orange, bringing them outside of this wash level and just highlighting highlighting them back with the original orange would make them pop.
Yeah, it kind of leads back to your first point. You know, when you're kind of going for this darker, grittier style, it's important to grit it down, but you have to bring it back.
Right. Yeah, only a little bit though.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, because a little bit can do a lot.
Un poco.
And then edge highlighting on some of the like events to bring out some of those details.
Yeah.
Love the color choices.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, the orange and the dark gray really do stand out nicely. So actually, you know, the color grading right here is what I kind of want elsewhere. Because then it would really pop. It would, you know, even if it wasn't like this glow, but if you had just even some of that orange, that base orange.
Or even
tone.
if you could do some of that base orange tone as like an underglow in the cabs.
Yeah, I know for my Sagittars, I went ballistic, and instead of painting the inside of it like a normal person, I did the glow from the screen. So I just have varying degrees of greens, starting with a very dark green that slowly builds up to highlights, and that's how you can distinguish like the face, the eyes, the nose. But I'm also crazy, so maybe don't do what I do.
Something to note as well is when you're putting these clear plastic, cockpits on, don't use super glue.
I struggled with that. These were actually some of my first vehicles as a whole that I had to do. I did that.
Use Elmer's glue or PVA glue.
It sucks and it hurts, but it'll keep it cleaner.
Well, it takes a day to dry, so you have to glue it on and then leave it.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll
As
dry.
much as you want to work on it,
Yeah,
just
as much as
leave
you
it.
want to work on it. Yeah, leave it overnight and then pick it up the next day. But it will dry clear, but then it will not fog up the rest of the windows.
Yeah.
And that's just a painful lesson.
That being said, having worked on these before, the pieces where it's the front piece where it's two separate ones, actually I can tell like a little bit of a line, but for the most part it actually looks really cool.
Yeah, I didn't know that was two separate.
Yeah,
ones,
which is impressive, and that's the only reason I see the slight line. But I mean, I know I struggled with it myself, so I feel the struggle as well.
Yeah, no, it's good though.
Sagittars are dope. They're super cool. Even though they were sold out, and I bought 4 as soon as I saw the trend. Like, people really like these Sagittars. I'm like, well, I'm just gonna grab a few of these.
This bit right here is really highlighted well. Like, you should bring that to the rest of the panels, I feel. So
Yeah, nice catch. Yeah, it catches really nicely. Because you can always do it really subtly at first, and then when you hit a spot where you're just like, all right, that's enough, you can just set it down. Versus like if you go too high and you're just like, oh no.
A little bit of overpaint there off the gun, but yeah. No, it's a really well done Sagittar.
Yeah, another fantastic. Yeah, 3D.
Mangus,
the conversion is really cool. The adding the tracks versus the wheels. I'm a simpleton. I can't kit bash. If I do, it's really minute.
Oh yeah, no, there's a whole different level to kit bashing. It's just
Yeah,
it's
a secret.
All right,
What do we got next?
Who's up next? We got looks like a frost giant. Oh yeah, frost giant.
Oh,
A giant of frost.
Frosty.
From
Big frosty.
Ashley.
Ashley. All right.
Monster frost giant.
Glossy.
I see.
Hoarfrost.
Roll 2d6 to add primal dice. Age of Sigmar people, if you're watching out there and you appreciated that, please let me know. Thank you.
I like the model.
From just the initial look, the skin tone is blended nicely. I wish there was a little more differentiation with the armor pieces from like the hair.
Yeah, they could. Yeah.
And same with the axe. I wish the axe had more to it.
Yeah.
There's a lot to say about it. That's
I do. Yeah, I do like. Well, you got the highlights on the muscles in the correct spot. I would go further with them to pop it a little bit more, and then you could do kind of the gloss wash over it, so that way it has kind of that icy sheen to it, depending on if that's what you're going for. For the shoulder pads, I probably would lean into a bone color.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it does kind of blend, because when it's this close to the hair, where the hair's white, the beard's white, the horns are white, it tends to get very close to each other.
Yep. I love the green tunic.
Good choice of a different color.
The differential between the leathers and the green tunic is very well done.
And then tying in with the light blue, it's so good.
A little bit of stippling on the rocks adds like a nice differentiation, kind of a frosty vibe. Frosty Vibes. And then, yeah, just what Alex said there with you have this pattern on the axe. I would maybe switch to a different metal.
Or
just brighten it up. Yeah, just give it a raise.
Yeah, and then same with the bladed edge.
Yeah,
you want it to be shiny because it's been honed. You want that.
And the bit of the handle, and maybe a little extra wash on like the helmet and the wrist brace to add just a little deeper.
Yeah.
But I mean, readable.
Yeah.
You know what it is.
Yeah. It's a frost giant.
It's
hard to miss.
As a frost. Is this a tree? This is a tree, right?
It's a storm giant, right?
Yeah. But in all honesty, though, you're most of the way there with wanting to make sure that you're using something that's playable for the table, because I'm assuming this is for like D&D too.
Right.
And so having this is again, I bring back something that we've repeated every single Dwarven Axe, and that is, if you see a model like this sitting on the table and you're playing D&D, that is the coolest thing that night.
That's the reason.
That is so cool.
It's the reason why you get immersed in these moments, in these games, in these anything. It's just because you see a miniature and there's a tangible feeling to something that actually is existing in front of you. I mean, I think that's one medium. That's the one medium that miniatures captures really well. Over like
your character is facing this right now.
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't lose out on that.
Yeah.
And I know that there's been dragons and monsters and things that get put out, and people are going, well, I don't know if this is good enough. And it's like, I don't think you understand. If this got placed on a D&D table,
We're stoked.
terrified.
Everyone's stoked.
So cool. That would be the talk of the next couple months of playing D&D. So, this in and of itself, if you put this on a D&D table, so cool.
Roll initiative right now.
Oh man, no.
Well, in D&D
diplomacy.
Well, and that's really like come close to home for me, because that's my initial start, was working on D&D minis.
Yeah.
I painted a green dragon because my DM had us face a green dragon.
That's evil.
That's rude.
It was a tough fight, but we did beat it. But I know that he plays the same campaign with another group. So I'm like, I want them to be absolutely terrified. Give me exactly your description of this character again, and I will paint it up for you.
Yeah.
And I did, and they still have yet to have to fight that green dragon, but
you know it's coming.
It will be there when it's ready.
Spoiler alert. Maybe.
I don't think they watch this, but yeah.
Well, there's problem number one. They could have had a +2 to their initiative.
Yeah.
Actually, again, I will say, like, it is a fantastic model, a great starting point.
Absolutely.
Especially entering into this competition, it's difficult to get some feedback on things for like, what do I do next? And the next steps are just highlighting, adding those extra little things.
Right.
And it's gonna sing. Like,
Even adding some snow texture to some of the edges of the rocks too would be really cool.
And you read the muscles. That takes people a lot of time.
Yes.
Especially on whether it be a frost giant or even a small miniature. Like reading muscles and highlighting them takes people a lot longer than you'd expect, and you did a good job with that.
Yeah.
So good job, Ashley.
Yes, thank you. Another Adam B.
Another Adam B. Got a chimera.
Monster/vehicle.
Converted.
Sorcerer?
Yeah.
Sork.
Yeah, converted sorcerer on Chimera.
Chimera.
Yes, because this is a kit bash between Ventus Firestrike, I want to say, and some Zechian bits.
Because that head is from like a Lord of Change.
Yeah, it's got to be from a Lord of Change. If you're in chat, again, let us know what pieces you use. I'm always curious. Or not. I don't think that's from his monster. I can't remember his monster. It's
that model is so much fun.
I am a huge fan of the base.
Yes.
So I know we talked about several models off screen before the stream, and the thing that catches this is just the color palette. The basing is phenomenal. You let the model do the work.
It reads perfectly as stone.
Yeah, you really nailed that, and like the leaves, picking out all the little leaves and matching them with like some of the tufts, so you don't feel like you're outside of the realm of what this is.
Supernatural.
Yeah. Some of the critiques that I have, bolt lines, you really want to gap fill those, make sure that they are filled in. using something like milliput or green stuff, I wouldn't necessarily recommend liquid.
No, I mean sometimes because I do plastic glue for a lot of my stuff, and sometimes I'll intentionally overfill it a little bit so then I can just quick wipe it or quick sand it if I need to after.
That's usually what I do as well.
Yep. It's just in that way you just make sure you don't have it because I am still rough with green stuff.
Yeah, the milliput, liquid green stuff, sprue glue, stuff like that. Something to help fill it.
You got options.
You got options, yeah. The other thing is that it feels like it's an incomplete miniature with some of the black. The tabards on the cloak just feel like they're just flat and black, and they don't have. There's a little bit of highlighting on this one, but there's none on the side.
Yeah, and there's detail. Yeah, there's detailing in that. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what that piece would be called. It's kind of like the blanket that goes before the saddle. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of washing,
but it's interesting because I think this is another benefit of contrast is that the wings read so nicely.
Oh yeah,
they're incredible.
The wings are. The wings are
skin tone.
eye catching. Yeah, along with like the orange tail as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my first walking up to the glass case here where we displayed them before, immediate pop was the skin.
Yeah,
I can tell it's airbrush blend, which is not a bad thing because I mean the gradients come in nicer.
Well, and it's another tool that you clearly have mastered.
Yep, and I love, especially on the front there, where you can tell the depth. You can tell where the skin starts to settle underneath because it gets darker under there, and it still has that deeper blue tone to kind of reflect the skin underneath there, which is fantastic. Again, wings absolutely crushed it. Great kit bash.
The tail and feathers, and then like the
spine.
The spine feathers are, and the mane is excellent too.
Yeah, fantastic conversion. The face actually looks really, really good. It's got a lot going on there, and like the way it transitions is really cool. I'd be curious. I'm not sure where that head is from, but it's really cool. I like the way it gradients there. I think there's some contrast there as well. I'm picking up Gilliman flesh potentially because that's the paler one. I use it all the time. Love Gilliman flesh. One of my favorites. But yeah, I would agree with Alex in the fact that if you highlighted up some of this cloak, just built up some colors there. I mean, and especially you're very talented with the airbrush. Clearly, as indicated here, I can see a little bit of overspill on the knee there.
Yeah, there's a little overspray up here too.
It's an airbrush, and especially when you're doing really soft gradients and you accidentally I admit I need an airbrush that has that little lock on the back that stops you from going too far. But again, there's so much to like about this model. I don't think anyone's gonna be upset seeing this on the table. Ever. No. It is fantastic. But yeah, if you popped up some of those things, it would just take it even further.
I would say highlights, making sure that you're paying attention to you're at that point again where your contrast paints are doing most of the work. Just highlight extra. You've saved a ton of time by doing contrast and building up those gradients underneath. Capitalize on that and bring it all the way up.
And getting those edge highlights even on the wings to pop those out even more so.
Your patches of grass actually also look really good too.
Yes.
Which I still struggle with immensely just because I can't get them to ever sit correctly. But no, this is fantastic. This is sick. And this is a fantastic conversion. Yes. Very good job blending the changer head on that horse spot because I mean I know that the event dismount has kind of bird-like quality to them, but quick swapping there is perfect.
Yeah, it felt very natural, the hippogriff style.
Yeah, sometimes it's the kit bash where you can tell. Sometimes you can tell it's a kit bash, and that one it flowed very naturally from the neck into the head.
One thing that I will point out while Chris is grabbing the next model is that the bird head needed a bit more highlighting on it, just a little bit more. So, we got a question. No questions. Okay. This is the last one for Monster Vehicle. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So we have Derek with a great unclean one.
Oh, he's unclean, all right.
Oh yeah.
Folds for days.
See, from just the initial look, the sores were well executed. I think you could have tightened up a bit of the purple around it. The purple is subtle enough, but in some areas it's kind of oversprayed a bit further than what I think you wanted.
It is nice to add that bruising.
Yes, it is.
Because I think that's something that some people miss on these models,
do.
is like you have an open wound and you don't blend it. I mean, obviously, when it comes to skin and things like that, there's bruising around incisions and cuts, sores.
Yep.
So that's a really nice detail.
I would rather have too much than too little in the
100%.
bruising area than that. So
I think the sword is really well done, really well aged.
yes,
Appropriately verdigreed.
yeah, it is. I would agree with that. Some of the initial things that I would point out too, you have a bunch of seam lines everywhere. Make sure that you're cleaning those up.
Gap in the wrist up here on the hand.
On this hand over here, and then on the shoulder right there. So
Great and Clean is he's in plastic now,
Yes,
correct?
this
There's
is
just
plastic.
there's an older one that's got
yep, you've weathered it up nicely, so it's got all the gross slimy bits going for
stomach
it.
teeth.
Yeah, the stomach teeth, the maggots coming out of the mouth. I think you could have weathered the chains a bit more, added a little more to them.
I do like that metallic green though. It's kind of got more of a bluish metallic to it, which is kind of a nice little change of pace.
This Nurgling is really well painted.
The Nurglings actually look really fantastic. They have some really tight highlighting, especially when you get to that skin tone one.
Right.
It's really nicely blended there.
Something that I will note is that this flame off the side, and same over here, it's gross. I feel like it's oily and nasty, but it's missing something for me where it just feels like it's not complete.
Yeah.
It doesn't read it reads as washed or contrasted, but it doesn't have anything more than that to it. So
And I know that this is always a struggle too in the Nurglite direction, is you want more of this muted Nurgle kind of palette, these like darker greens with like the paler greens and even yellow greens. But when you get to something that is like brighter, like even like the tentacles here that have that teal, that kind of aromatic blue vibe to them, don't be afraid to pop some of that up.
yeah.
But no, I mean, obviously, you want to make sure it doesn't overpower the model. I mean, the Great Unclean one is still like obviously the focus here. You got all the sores and everything, and the stomach and the Nurglings, and those are all drawing plenty of attention. But this one, you could definitely pop up kind of the incense on them and stuff like that. Censure.
Even the pustules, like because I'm assuming that this is either there's a contrast paint for it or a Averland Sunset, and adding some additional highlights on top, even just filling in the circle, so to speak, on them can really make it pop and feel more gross with it. So in addition, I would say purple looks fantastic. It's well highlighted. It's got some nice color gradient to it, so it doesn't feel like it's out of place.
Your Nurglings look incredible. Mm-hmm. They're all very, very readable, which is fantastic. It's always nice when the small guys get a nice little highlight to them.
Well, and the rust effect that they did on the chain on the back side of the model is also really well done too. Like there's some of the rust gradients in there. And the cowl and the helmet in general just reminds me of the Great Horned King from Black Cauldron. It just screams that vibe to me, and I think with that it's just really, really nicely done.
Yeah, weathering on the sword is fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, again, fantastic, Great and Clean one.
Yeah, I think if this got thrown on the table, no one's gonna be upset by that. It's even got plaque around the teeth and the stomach.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a really good touch.
Because as we know, they don't brush their teeth.
No.
The grandfather would not approve.
Like the ripped open skin isn't just blood either. It's well highlighted. It's
Agreed.
got it feels visceral and alive.
Versus just painting it.
Yeah,
The reddish hues. Like there's a visceral nature to it. Which is always
Well, and
fantastic.
even some of the blood streaking out of some of the broken up pustules as well.
That's a really good touch. There's an area back here where I want more of this, where it's this kind of like soft effect around pustules that has like this purple bluish glow to it, and with like a little bit of brown. And it's like I'd like that in some other areas because I think this is a really nice touch. I mean, he has it in some other areas too.
Kind of like the bruising.
Yeah, the bruising. Yeah, just a little bit more of that bruising in other places because I think then you get away from like maybe a lot in these large areas, and then you can put it around some of the smaller areas to highlight it, which he does in some areas, but not consistently.
And again, Derek, another fantastic entry.
Yeah, fantastic. Awesome. Closing thoughts from you, Kels?
No, I would agree. It's a really well done piece of art.
Yes.
A centerpiece, one might say.
Yes.
Yes. How nurgly of you.
All right.
Quite. So this was it?
That was the last for Vehicle Monster. And we'll be taking another quick break.
We're snapping our bones in half. Oh, taking a break. That's what it is.
Yeah. Oh, wait, you mean we aren't breaking our arms? What?
We're being told by our producers to shut up.
It's fair.
So we'll be back. And hopefully muting me this time. And we're back.
Welcome back.
I hope your break was as
Productive?
humorous
I don't know.
as ours was. Oh my goodness. By the way, if you come down to the Forge, this place is hopping.
True
Ton
story.
of stuff going on out there. It is.
We got Age of
nice.
Sigmar, X-Wing. We've got
Yeah.
some Magic players. I think we got a few board game players.
Got a few people getting into Arcana.
Wakana,
Ooh,
yep. There you go. So it's always a good time. But more than that, there's model stuff down here. Let me tell you what.
And
there's
painting.
A lot of model stuff, yeah.
All that wonderful jazz.
So
Speaking of which,
what are we getting into?
We're
now?
getting into Titanic.
Ooh, Titanic.
Our first model is by Derek, and it's an Imperial Knight. With a nice gradient of yellow.
Mm-hmm.
old strategy cotton, and it pans out for me.
That it does.
Yellow is a
Yep.
very,
Hawk
very
Shroud.
tricky color.
Yep. Hawkshroud colors. Very cool. Now I don't know a thing about knights.
Nope, not at all.
Never seen one in my life. So tell me a little bit about them. They look interesting.
They're big, they're stompy,
got it.
and they shoot a lot of things.
It's like slower Gundams if they were angrier.
Okay.
Thanks
for clearing that up for me.
I actually just recently finished my first night and entered into the Night's Joust that we had a couple weeks ago. And I think you beat out my paint job.
It was a fun event. If you're ever in the area, we're running another Night's Joust at the Renegade Open for sure, but we're gonna try and run more here.
It was a lot of fun.
Grab your local stompy night and just stomp. Oh.
You know I own this shirt.
You own it again.
Oh, nice. It's a good pajama.
By the way, we do sell these awesome
shirts.
Forge Dwarven Axe themed shirts if you're ever interested. At the Forge.
He was definitely waiting for the stream to go back to.
Oh, heck
He
yeah.
absolutely was.
Came in with a purpose.
So I've built and painted a lot of nights, and I can say that your decal work is really well done. That is the number one thing that I will point out is decals are not always the easiest things to work with, and you executed them well on this model.
Especially making them look a part of the model, because decals, as we all know, can be that they break that immersion as soon as you catch that weird reflection, but these ones blend in seamlessly.
Yeah, and you can get by that with a couple different techniques. My personal favorite is using something like microsole, and so to a simple degree, you put down like a gloss varnish to even out the surface of whatever you're putting it on. Let that dry. You put down the decal with water. Let that dry, and then you apply 2 to 3 coats of that microsole on top of it, because what it does is it softens that plastic and lets it adhere to the surface. Yes, after you do a couple of that, you put down a gloss varnish over that, and then you matte varnish over that, so that it pulls it back down to the layer that you want it to, but that seals it in nicely so it won't move, and then it also adheres it to the surface, and you did a great job. The one decal that looks like it got out of place are these 2 eagles on either side of the 2 Aquillas, and these ones are difficult to work with.
Yeah, they are.
Just working with them, they're hard. So
yeah, I imagine
that's a
with
bummer.
With those rivets, just the little rivet piece is probably a mess with those a good bit. I think you can kind of tell it's a little broken up spot in the middle there.
And actually, so it's actually supposed to be down here further, because there's divots in the eagle's like neck line that actually matches up with this arrow bit.
I thought you said
bit.
you knew nothing about Titans.
Not a thing.
Not a thing. He's just guessing.
Yeah, only guessing. For those that don't know, I've built and painted about 50 nights, so it's
Just a few.
just a couple few. Mold lines throughout the model, and that can be easily, whenever you're building it, just make sure that you're sanding it down, filling in those gaps and such. Some of the other points on a knight that it can be missed on are like the
Shoulder point.
yeah, the shoulder point and the circular bit around the arm. You can kind of get away with those, but yeah, the legs, because they're 2 parts clamped together, just trying to clean those up the best you can.
Yeah, with that recommendation, I know we mentioned that on one of the last few models that we did, overfilling with a gap-filling glue, or even doing sprue goo and getting that to go in, and then taking off as much as you can on the outside, then sanding it down, helps alleviate a lot of those problems.
You really did capture the heavy metal style, where it's edge highlighting the very GW style to it, and you did a great job. So,
You have a question?
Oh, there's a question from the audience.
MN Chainsaw is saying that gives Fallout vibes.
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit on that. I love
I think
that.
it's the metallics specifically, because Fallout does a really good job of like the darkened metallics, especially like the power suits was the T51s. And that's one thing that also stands out to me too, is obviously you already went bold strategy with the really, really, really clean yellow, but I really like the gradients on the metals too. Like it has a nice wear and tear to it. It's kind of like that kind of
oily,
oily, like in
dark
use,
oily,
which is always fantastic. And of course, I like the little light post.
Yeah.
Just the little
It
details.
gives
small pile of skulls.
scale.
Yeah, it does. The one thing that I will say about the light post is it does feel like it's kind of stuck on, and you, especially being that you do have texture paint down, is paint that ahead of time. Yeah, and then build it small mound, or have it on there and then stick it into the texture paint and let it dry as part of it. And that'll help kind of alleviate that problem.
And then there's some nice little highlights on the edges here, which...
And it's not overbearing, it's very subtle.
Yes, yes, it is. It is very, like the yellow transitions and such are very subtle, which is really good. Something that I will point out, there's highlighting on the copper bits up top, but not on the copper bits down below. And so having consistency between those two would probably be very beneficial. Not necessarily verdigris because that's a very clean model, but having that the copper be consistent with that kind of extra little bit of silver would pop nicely.
Yeah. So, fantastic though.
Yeah.
Well
some of the other
so
chords too could be. I'm just a sucker for knights, so I love painting them. I love building them. They're my favorite army to work from. So.
As someone who just finished a knight, I want to paint another one. So.
It's a deep place to go down for knights. So. But it's a ton of fun. So thank you, Derek.
Yeah, thank
absolutely.
you
for an excellent model.
Another fantastic entry.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
What do we got next? Oh
boy.
Oh boy.
Morty.
So this is Morty from Simon. Simon entered into the last Dwarven Axe with this, but we didn't realize that this was a model that we were supposed to judge. And so we told him to re-enter it this time, and he did, which we were very happy.
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you so much and understanding. Greatly appreciate it. So I'm very excited to take a look at this model and really give it a look over. So Morty is a fantastic model to work with.
Behemoth.
He is huge.
Huge. He's got a presence. I don't know how he plays these days because I know that Death Guard are not that great in the competitive scene, but he's just so iconic.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, they clearly took notes on Morty, I think, specifically as they were going and designing Angron, because just of the little details, the little indications of, like, when you think of Nurgle, you think of Morty. But yeah, we got a comment or question?
Yeah.
Mankus is wondering how your Lancer's coming, Kelsey.
I haven't started it yet. I have a lot of other projects I need to get through first. But it is currently still in its box, but maybe sometime soon.
Some assembly.
I gotta finish Zavala first, Dan.
Yeah, you do actually. It's been around for a while.
It has been around for a while.
Right off the bat, one thing that I love is the wings.
Yep.
You did a great job having that coffee staining effect that a lot of times you want to avoid. In this case, it is dead on to what you want on this model. The coffee staining is absolutely what you want to give that kind of plague,
arched,
moth-like, wings that are on the edge of hydrated. And that looks really cool. The extra little effect on the of slime on the scythe is definitely well placed, along with the blood there. I'm guessing that's a little. I think that's a super glued fishing line, maybe. Some extra little stuff on it.
Looks like that.
Yeah, something like Uhu glue would do really well here too. So that was a good choice. Seeing the Nurglings also painted, always fun. The armor's a little dark, but it's consistent and it's rusty. So it's got that rusty, well-worn look.
Fits into its motif.
I think a little bit of brightening, a little bit of highlighting could help push it to the next level so that it doesn't get lost. Because I feel like Morty himself kind of gets lost in the rest of it being very bright, and you kind of lose him in the background.
Well, and even that, doing a little bit of edge highlighting on some of the higher up metals just to define it a little bit better would be good.
Or a brighter rust.
That too.
Yeah. And I would apply that also to the back cloak. Definitely has that strong purple up there, and there's a few appears to be some highlights, but it could definitely benefit from a little bit more popping up on that side as well. just to kind of amplify that out, and especially like once you get around to the hood too, especially because Morty's face is kind of hidden underneath the hood. If you can find ways or elements of like getting that to kind of lift itself up a little bit further, I mean, just makes it all the better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Base solid.
Yeah, the base actually really shines to me. That he feels like it's placed in a scene rather than just kind of. Sometimes it's just people just leave the rocks, and those rocks actually go down a little further. So he added in a layer of resin or something.
Yeah, a nice little puddle.
Yeah, so it actually it feels like it's more of a puddle or lake.
Yep, I think I see a gray knight helm down there somewhere.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I would agree with the popping up the armor just a little bit. It does have that rusted, worn look. But kind of even just adding a few pops of like that sickly green that the Nurgle faction has, I think would really also just adding those little bits of highlights to the armor doesn't make necessarily even just, it's not even a service to just the armor, that makes the other details on the armor pop so much more.
Yes.
Because now it adds separation, it adds distinction, and that's why artistic styles like comic book styles where you have bold black lines between colors create such a sharp readability, is because it's that immediate distinction, where if you pop in some of that sickly green on the armor, I think it would bring a lot of the detail out on his armor.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a little bit of overspray here on this chain in comparison to all the other chains. Might have been either a drop of paint or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Right there.
Yep. It's right on it. Yeah. Overall, again, the model itself feels it's a really well executed Mortarion. I think that Morty himself kind of gets lost because everything else is highlighted, or it's has that variation, and then he himself is just really dark.
Right.
And so some internal consistency would be really good on that. But overall, like, I love the color palette.
Yeah.
The colors themselves just really sing. So.
Yeah, and again, those wings are. If I was going to, like, I feel like that's what I would probably focus on the most.
Mm-hmm.
If I was painting that model, is like trying to make those wings look exactly like that, and that coffee stain effect is perfect.
Yeah, I think that's what really shines on
That's a big highlight for me.
is Morty is his wings.
Right.
It's his wings and then himself, or his wings, scythe, himself. So having those three pillars as where you want to focus on, and the wings are definitely the biggest.
Our dirty little moth angel.
Every time a bell rings, the angel gets his wings.
Except every time a bell rings from Nurgle, we're all doomed.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So it's an STD.
Yeah. So. Oh boy.
Alright.
All right. The
So thank you again for bringing that.
Bringing it back.
Alright. We have another Titanic model. It's the Blue Dracolich.
And our last Titanic.
Yes.
So.
From Ashley.
From Ashley, yeah. This thing is huge. It is.
He has some heft.
He chonk.
He chonky. Again, this is one of those instances of you plop this down on a D&D table.
Yep.
Oh boy.
Yeah, especially
I'm rolling a new character.
Especially just that it's more than just a model. There's an entire tower they're climbing over, a ruined tower that this thing is making its way around.
The basing is phenomenal.
Yep.
It really does feel like it's in a scene of destruction and disrepair.
Great stone color choice too.
Yeah,
and
there's
there's contrasted. It's not gray. It's not boring.
They added the rocks into the side there too. That's
Yep,
awesome.
so you get the crumbling effect. You get different color bricks, because bricks, whenever you're building a building, especially for this style, like if you're using river rock or something like that, it has different colors to it. And I love when people add different colors to the brickwork, so it breaks up the monotony of the brick.
Yeah.
And she does that here really nicely.
Bones are picked out nicely.
The bones are picked out nicely. I think a little bit of extra shading in between some of the bone would be nice, and that can be said elsewhere too. This feels very Blizzard.
Yes.
World of
Are you
Warcraft.
thinking of the Wrath of the Lich King cinematic like I am?
Syndragosa style too. Yeah. I love it.
It's a very interesting model.
Yeah, it is. I think that it has some of the same issues that her Frost Giant had too, where it needs some extra, I wouldn't say necessarily extra highlight because it is very contrasty, but just a little bit more, you're picking out specific spots and you're highlighting and building up those areas.
Yeah, and you can see that she's tried doing that or has some effort into it.
Yeah, because all the bones in between the skin are actually well painted and picked out.
Yeah, a lot of the dry brush here, like this thing would be a dry brush, like heaven.
Yeah.
Because there's just so much, especially like on the wings where you can just catch these individual raised areas. And you
It
can
looks
just,
like she kind of did.
yeah,
too.
which I do appreciate that little detail of catching and raising up the color in between on the wing flaps.
Well, and
Yes.
then darkening and doing some deep lining with black in some areas, especially like that. The one that really pops out is that elbow joint right there on the wing.
It really does.
Yeah, that is chalk, that is terrifying, and that is fantastic. And I do really, really love the brick color choice. That is a perfect color choice.
Yes.
Because
Basing
that's
is
a perfect.
amazing.
The basing really sells the model
Yeah.
overall, I would say.
That's always a huge battle when you're placing your model on something. If it's too samey, it throws it off. I mean, you got to give it a proper setting, and the setting for this really, really, really fits the theme and really accentuates the blue, accentuates the white. Everything is just complementary to itself.
There's a glue
line?
Yeah, glue. Yeah, like she had to really work and get glue on this to make it stick.
I can only imagine what it was
yeah.
like having to handle and
Oh
glue
my
and
gosh.
get this thing to stay in its place.
Yeah, no kidding.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's excellent. Like there's little spots that I would say make sure that you're focusing like on this hip joint right here. It's a little bit of missed color, but like overall, it's so it is internally consistent
Absolutely.
with itself. And that makes for a good model. You know, again, there's joints here that should be, you know, you'll want to gap fill them, glue them together a little bit, you know, more clean. But from like a painting perspective, it's fantastic.
It's solid.
Yeah, it's solid. As is this model. But yeah, just assembly would be my biggest takeaway from this. That I would be a little bit more. That I'd want a little more from because it's difficult.
Well, especially, I would guess it'd be either a resin or a 3D print, right?
It's definitely resin cast. It's too heavy to be.
Yeah, I can only imagine how long you had to keep that locked in place,
Oh,
like
man.
holding it while watching TV for an hour
Yep.
or something.
Yeah,
Oh,
nah.
I had to do
There's-
it with my Star Drake even.
That
was-
is dedication right there.
Yes, that is. That speaks volumes to this
You
thing.
have sacrificed for your art.
Yes. There are mold lines in places. There's, you know, like if I went into more detail about it, I would say, you know, make the bones a bit, you know, give the bones some variation in color so it's just not a flat kind of bone white. You can add some tans and some grays,
browns.
Yeah, some
browns
slight
into
gradients,
it.
yeah.
You know.
I do really like the white though, because it does have that comic book pop
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah, it
And
does.
Especially like that blue and white relationship versus like a blue and tan. They're both complementary relationships, but when you get that popped white, especially like on an exposed bone with the black line around it, just
It does pop. And again, this is one of those
it's style.
Yeah, it's a style thing, and if you put it down on a table, that's going to be a memorable.
oh,
event.
100%.
Man.
Number
just-
one, because one of your legs on your table will buckle as it comes colliding down. I have a gargantuan orc squig-off. I can't wait to slap that on a table and say, "Parry this, you casual." It's gonna be great.
I got to bring that to a night joust. I got to see how that.
Absolutely, I can't wait to run into something with huge tusks. It'll be fun.
Huge.
That's huge.
Land.
They're huge. If there was ever an orc, I'd be terrified.
Thank you again, Ashley, to
Absolutely.
bringing that. That was absolutely just so much fun.
We love that you love that kind of color blue, because
Yeah.
I
Yes.
do too. And that rhyme, don't hate the player, hate the game. Bars.
And that wraps up our Titanic category.
Doesn't it though?
So now we are hopping into open.
Open category. We got what? 2 entries?
Two entries for
Two
open.
entries in open.
We got Will
Welcome back.
with the possessed cultist, which
It's culty.
very, very well done. I am a big fan of the skin tone. There's some like bruising into the purple. The cloak is a little overwashed, but it's not terribly overwashed. It kind of fits with the style.
Yep. Yeah, there's two different colors, like skin tones here. So there's the over skin tone that's bruised and kind of coming apart at the seams, and then the skin tone underneath it. I agree with the overwash cloak, though it works in this instance. I feel, but
I think when you're possessed, you don't do laundry.
No, probably not.
All the inside of the neck mouth thing.
Yeah, neck mouth.
Neck mouth.
Yeah, this thing
is well painted too. He did actually pick out the facial features, so it does feel like his face is painted. This is really excellent for
fantastic natural base too.
Yeah, I like the basic.
It's very clean. It's got it's got some uniqueness to it, especially when you're working with such a small model and such a small base. Making that somewhat distinctive, you just clearly put in the extra work because it's so easy to just like, oh, here's my model. It's on this small base. Ta-da.
The only thing that I might do is suggest like highlighting like this tentacle coming out the side a bit more. It feels a little lost from the front, especially against the skin on the sides from it too. Yeah. But like you want to make sure that you're highlighting things so that it just doesn't it doesn't meld into the same. And that's kind of consistent from a lot of people's models, is that you see this kind of this pattern to push the when you're washing or you're adding some extra weathering in, you're pushing it towards kind of everything becomes homogeneous, and you don't get the separations that you need to make something pop or stand out or explode out for colors or tones, and you want to avoid that. And I would say this is getting towards that side where it's getting closer to homogeneous, where you want to add in some extra little pop or color so that it stands out, or there's portions of it that draw the eye a bit more.
Yeah. The skin tone blends are fantastic.
Yeah, they are.
Especially where like you're capturing that light. You also set a very specific light location with it, because you can tell just sitting up on here, and then even on that shoulder, even on that face. Yeah, you can like the face is actually really nicely blended too. That blends in very nicely there. Maybe a little detail on the teeth. I know teeth are always a nightmare and a half. I also got to give it to the boot. Here, that boot is clean, like nicely blended, nicely highlighted. You see the texture of this boot in that highlight, and that's just attention to detail that captures that really nicely. This looks fantastic.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun to it,
especially when you can do something this nice for something that might just get blown off the table in 30 seconds. Like that is always fantastic. Actually, I think a cursed cultist right now, or possessed cultists, are actually doing really well with chaos base ranks.
Oh, okay.
They have some fun little abilities. I would love to see. I would actually, if you have the other cursed or possessed cultists, I would love to see the rest of those, especially the big one with the huge knuckle. There's a really cool one that's just like mostly face, and then just has like this one huge knuckle that it carries on.
That's cool.
It is a sick looking model. And I love the little detail especially on the face, on the top there.
Yeah.
Just like, here's a human who thought his mouth would be where his mouth is, but it turns out it was his neck the whole time.
Not so much.
So, and that's the friends you made along the way.
Yeah.
Another fantastic model.
Yeah, another fantastic model. It's an excellent entry. So thank you again, Will. And the last model of the event, or the competition, I should say.
Yeah, for the competition. We have Bert.
Another Bert special.
Bertree.
Swamp Ogre.
Ogre.
I love the contrasting orange snake on this dapper gentleman.
It's also got a pattern on it, so it's not so
plain.
Yeah, it's not just he just slapped down a yellow and was like, that's good. He wanted to add some extra little bits to it.
His Anaconda don't want none unless it's got patterns on it.
And then there's the OSL with the lamp too.
The OSL is really well executed on the back. I don't think it's well executed on the lantern itself. The lantern needs to be a brighter color than the color that it's projecting onto. I will be a little harsher on this than his Stickman, mostly because I feel that there isn't enough difference between this wood and this wood. Or picking out this spooter on the top here. But I think that's the biggest takeaway for me is that from the back it looks better because it's more of a greenish wood than the boat, but from the front you lose that sense of what color the boat is supposed to be, and it looks like it's just kind of washed in that place.
Again, another
the basing's awesome.
Of course, another fantastic base
Yeah.
with the natural material and everything, and yeah, this definitely has. You know, you can tell it's in the same setting but different location. And I would agree. I do really like the soft lighting on the top. It sits really nicely because it doesn't take away from the color palette, number one, which is huge. And you can tell it's actually brighter on the snake, which it should be, because the scales would be, you know, a bit brighter. Yeah, I mean, I do like the pattern on the snake as well.
And my critique with it is just brighten the lamp. All you need to do is make the lamp a brighter
just,
yellow.
Yeah, one or two glazes more, and it'll pop.
That's all you need.
Really nicely.
You know,
Maybe a little bit on the back of it, on the back of the boat too.
Yep.
Yes.
The moisture underneath the boat.
Yes.
Is kind of a fun little feature too. And there's a spider there.
Yeah.
Very large spider.
I wish the spider was more well highlighted.
I think there could be a little punch up on the spider. The moss and the greens again look fantastic because there's obviously a lot more of it on said ogre. But again, just the highlights on the wood on the front, like there's a very distinct texture, there's a very distinct feel to them, and you can tell it's a tree.
You can tell it's a tree by the way it is.
Yeah, by the way it is. You know, by being a tree.
Well, the eyes too for this one again need that pop, need that little spark of life. So adding in that extra bit of highlighting in those eye sockets would be really awesome to see. So
yeah, it'd be kind of fun to put a model like this and actually do even some like resin like swamp water or something, like have it like literally like waking up from a little nap in a swamp
or trudging through the swamp where you have like
little ripple effect.
Yeah.
You could go ballistic with this.
The tree lord,
and of course the little voodoo.
The voodoo that they do.
Yeah. The voodoo that they do. But
voodoo doll.
I'd say for sure for me, biggest highlight is the soft lighting on the lamp.
The soft lighting really,
especially as you get closer to it, like there's accented details and just pops super nice. If that was Stickman, this is Treeman.
Treeman's
golden
mine. Treeman's mine.
Yeah, another fantastic entry from Bert. Big Beard Bert.
All right, that is it for the competition. Now, us as judges, we wanted to bring in some models, but first, thank you to everyone for submitting.
And comments, concerns, if you had any.
This was great. I hope you've enjoyed the stream so far. So thank you again for jumping in and submitting models. These were awesome to see.
Yes.
So fantastic time. But, so judges, we brought in some models of our own that we wanted to talk about, like saying, hey, we have, we wanted to really talk about, like, what is something that you captured in this model that you were going for?
Yeah. And also as a nice little tidbit on it, also kind of so when you look back at your feedback, say you go back to it at YouTube and you're like watching the clip of your feedback specifically, this way you can kind of see, like, whenever we mention something like, oh, do you see this blend here, or like highlighting or something like that, then you kind of have an actual visual aid here, just for any detail that we
and a
draw
point of
attention to.
reference.
Yeah, especially on a point of reference or something that you can see and point out. And you are going to be your worst critic when it comes to models, and sometimes you can't see everything that you're working on to really get a good idea of what should I work on next, or where am I missing it, because sometimes you can just put down a model and go, I don't like it, doesn't look right, I don't know. I'm going to scrap it, or I don't know what to do with it. And so this can be, some of them are works in progress, and some of them are finished models. But it's good to get a mixture of both.
Yep.
So, and then critiquing your own stuff, because we can't win anything, but we can definitely beat on each other's stuff.
Oh, heck yeah. Not like we don't already do.
Yeah, all the time. By the way, join the Dwarven Axe Discord.
Yeah. Do you want to start with?
We'll start with yours.
Yeah,
Why
you
not? It's
have
here.
yours on
It's
your
already
table.
yeah.
So the gentleman I brought here is Radikar the Wolf. So before he goes beast mode, literally and figuratively. So the thing that I wanted to accent on here, especially when we talk about, I believe it was Adam's, the Light of Etherian.
Yes.
When I talk
Oh,
about the cloak, specifically when we talk about like kind of punching up, this has two different kinds of blends that I want to draw attention to. So, for example number one, if we got the...
I was going to say, is the camera working
Yeah.
over there?
I missed the name.
Oh, Radikar the Wolf. But yeah, basically, there's two different kind of blends that I did on here, where it's the inside of the cloak that kind of has this forest green color here, and even just on the pants alone. I took the red and I started from a darker tone. This was after a zenithal on it, so I just kind of take it, and this is an example of kind of like a brighter
Do you want to
highlight.
explain what a zenithal is?
Yes, that would probably be important. So zenithal is where you prime the model completely black, and then using kind of like creating a quote-unquote light source of sorts, you prime it either white or brighter color of some kind so that it creates accents. And it's also kind of nice to use not just for even when you're painting, but it's also nice to use for your own kind of like mental exercise, because then you see where the light's coming from. You're creating the light via that zenithal. But this one in particular, it has kind of had the brighter blend here on the cuff, where it goes from like a darker color to a lighter color. So that's just kind of an example of like punching up a brighter color. So it's like taking that kind of foresty green and bringing it up to a higher level green. But like a good example, particularly as it pertains to that Light of Etherian model, is the cloak back here, where I wanted to keep it black but kind of have that dark teal vibe to it. So what I ended up taking is just putting on these light little highlights on it, so that it's still a dark cloak, it's still black, but it has a nice readability to it. Mm-hmm. So in that way, you're not just sitting there like relying on just contrast. I distinctly recall, I think I actually used some Kellian green on this, and then I did some black over it, but then I took an acrylic and I just edge highlighted some of the folds on the cloak or on the cape there, and just wanted the coat to pop a little bit more. So it's a good example of two different blends, one being these brighter blends of like building that color to a brighter color, and also taking a darker color and still having that readability of being a dark color while still kind of popping it up.
In this, from the model here, it looks like closer to that heavy metal style, where it's building that very distinct contrast point, especially on the dark cloak, of having these brighter edges of a distinct color. It's not just gray, it's not just black, and it has a very GW-esque style to it that builds in, which can be very beneficial to models that GW designs. So I do like that about this model. And you're right, the blending is excellent, where you're adding in these cool blends, and it really does feel like you captured that and like the fur really nicely, especially from the front. Something that I will note though is that the fur on the back just kind of lacks that amount of brightness. And honestly, if you were to do like a light to dark, so the front is where the light is coming from and the back is where the light is not, is just add in distinctive colors to indicate
I've
that.
still got to figure out, because it's the lore is he kills a wolf, Vilnius, two-headed wolf, and one is like this, the front
lighter
white,
color, and then
the back
gray.
then the second one has like the grayer and has
okay.
like the little thing on the back. That being said, I could absolutely clean up. There's this spot where there's no transition there. But yeah, I really focused in on the pants and the cuff and like his skin tone, because he's a vampire, so you want him to be pale but not get so pale that it draws away from him. But
Well, especially with being in comparison to a light gray and a white wolf.
yeah. That's what happens when you have two heads as a wolf.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, so good example for that Light of Etherian. So like if you're looking at your model, and one of the pieces of feedback we gave is like kind of either punching up color or increasing the highlight. This kind of gives you a decent reference point of like doing that for brighter colors, or when you're you know, you want something to be readable as dark, but you still want to highlight it to make it have a little bit more detail to it. The back of the code there, just kind of giving that little edge, so that way it's still very readable as a dark object, but with a brighter.
Absolutely.
So that's radical.
Well, thank you so much for bringing that. Why don't we? Do we want to do the knight or do we want to do Kelsey's? Oh, got a question. Me.
There's
Me.
Oh,
okay.
yeah.
All right. Do we have the ability to capture that? All right. We got it. We're getting a nod. Yes. It's a little bit big.
all right. Have night will travel.
Yeah. I don't know where you want it.
It's perfect.
It's perfect. He says.
Perfect.
The shot.
Perfect.
It's a knight.
It is a night.
It's a knight.
1 of 51 that have been painted.
Yeah. Let me know if I should pull it back or push it forward or something. No. If I turn it in place, am I going to lose everything? Okay. Cool. Yeah. So this is my Knight Gallant. I specifically built it to be a Knight Gallant. But something that I wanted to focus on was something that I took a hold of when I started my Scottish Knights was everything has to have a dynamic pose. Everything has to be doing something in the scene, because my display board is a snapshot in time of a moment. A remembrancer went through and snapped this shot. It was kind of the idea, and so having specific things, having momentum, having movement is very important. Oh, we got a question.
Almighty Bacon says that looks like Alex Hunt's garbage.
Yeah, that's Danny.
Hi,
for you.
Danny.
Hi, Danny. It does look like my straight trash. So
Might as well just pull the pin right over.
yeah, right. Just each one of my knights has freehand on one shoulder pad for a scene in Scotland or Ireland, from Old Earth, so to speak. And so I have, all of these have a ton of freehand and a ton of extra little bits and, details and bombs and whatever like that, same with decals, weathering and such. But I wanted this one to feel unique in that I focused on the momentum of the Hellbrute being ripped apart. And so adding in, trying to figure out how to place where the sword is, building the sword, because this is all scratch built. So figuring out how to place the sword in the movement of whatever model that I'm working on, how to extend it so it feels realistic but not so overtly big that it becomes comical on the scale of model. So that was kind of tricky. The one thing that I wanted to focus on that I knew, however, was I took special care to the shield to make sure that I had the proper look and feel for the shield, which has Scottish thistles on it, and then script. So, but one thing that I'm not good at right now is freehand. So getting practice in with actual freehand is really important to me, and it's something that a model that we might look at later is I did freehand plaid, and so getting practice in and doing your reps and doing pictures and whatever. And what I did was I found a picture online that I liked, and then I replicated it on the best I could on the shield, and then filled it in and blended it and did a bunch of work with highlights and such. And they always say, oh, just work on shapes. All you need to do is really work on build this shape and then build off of that shape. And realistically, some of that's true. I would say if you can try and frame in what your model or what the picture looks like, and then build in from there, that was the important part for me. However it works for you to basically take whatever it is and then replicate it over onto a different area is the most important part. I've also done it where I've done a decal and then done extra paint on top of it so that I can have that kind of. This is a framework to build the eventual colors.
Use some reduction.
Yeah, like a head of a wolf, like the Canis Rex wolf head.
Yeah.
I put that on there, but it's flat white, and it's like, okay, now I can actually paint. Like, oh, I have the wolf head. I don't have to draw the wolf head. Now I can just fill in the wolf head. So some of those techniques can work really well. Yep. So like I'll let Kelsey see the shield. Move that over here. So some of the extra blending and extra like the script work, I was really happy with how the script came out, or the ribbon. I could have done a little bit better on the writing, but.
Well, writing is hard on using a paintbrush.
Yeah, and you can use something like a Micron pen, but it just didn't work out in this instance. So I used a brush to try and. So.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the Iron Warriors halberd, because you got the hazard stripes, which anyone who's ever attempted hazard stripes knows that it is a nightmare and a half. And not only that, but the gradient on the chest piece right there, how it transitions from that bright yellow into the darker yellow, just from the center out, is fantastic.
It's all that is tape and airbrush. And that's, I mean, realistically, that was it. I took a.
You make it sound so simple, but then you have to get the tape perfectly lined up, and then you accidentally forget to block off something.
That's true. Actually, so there's always something I found that with any artist, they point out something that is inconsequential to their to the rest of the model, because most people will go, oh yeah, but the plaid and then the freehand, and it's like, yes, but the most important thing for me is that I put a glow effect from the sword onto either side and along the back, so it looks like it's actually being stabbed through by something that's molten, instead of it just being, because I stuck it in place and it was like, cool, it's in place, awesome. And I was taking pictures and I'm like, something's off, something's not right. And I actually went back and added glazes and built up these glazes so that it looked like it was molten, that it was being stabbed through, and it had reflection. That's my personal favorite. Like, that was the thing I felt like I nailed.
Well, and that's a great point of thing where you looked at references. And that helps immensely as an artist in any sort of art field, is looking at references. If you're not sure how something's supposed to look, go look for it online. There's, or even if you have an option to, go out into the actual world and take a picture of exactly what you're looking for, so you can use that as your point of reference, so that you can imply that and add it onto your model.
Yeah, this is the most violent flat tire that's ever been done in history. For those who don't know, you've probably been flat tired by somebody when they step on the back of your shoe intentionally to make it fall off. But in this case, stepped on a Hellroot's foot and impaled them out of their body. Or whatever remained of their body.
By the way, if you're ever interested, this stuff right here is just Uhu glue. You can buy it online for all the stringy, gross bits, and then paint it with blood for the blood god.
Yeah, make some top of that.
Yeah. No, I don't even mix it. I just let it dry.
Oh, just let it dry.
Then I paint it.
Gotcha.
I did a little bit of watering down, and then I added like where it really needed to be more, like a darker, gunked up area. Then I did just pure. But yeah, it's just building it up slowly. So.
Yeah, and this would also be a great example for when we talked about, the weathering of like reducing and then bringing back.
Yep.
And the nice spots that have a nice highlight that are still weathered, but returned to a brighter side.
The one thing that's really difficult for me is that this style for me is 4 or 5 years old now, and so having to replicate that. When I've learned so much since then, I'm like, okay, when I weather, I should do this instead of this. But if you're staying consistent with an army, you have to go back and be able to do that. Also, something that does help is writing everything down.
Writing your steps and
writing down my
colors. And,
because I did that.
Skeleton.
Oh, we can do your.
You want to do mine?
Yeah, let's do yours.
Okay. The Dragonborn.
Yeah, the Dragonborn. Not that Dragonborn.
No, not that. What who are you talking about?
What? No, nothing.
That one.
There's
I
no.
assume you're good.
Yeah.
There's no big booty Judy.
Back to the point though is make sure that you are journaling what you're or what you're doing, and that way you can remember down the line, years back, how you did something, why you did something, the technique on getting this color exactly right, or this weathering style, or I used this weathering powder, this technique. All of that can be invaluable. At the moment, it's a pain because documentation's always a pain, but down the line, you'll never regret writing it all down. Because I write down all of my paints, all the paint numbers.
Steps.
Yep, steps. And I keep it fairly brief. Like, this is my base coat, and this is my layer, and this is my dry brush, and this is my and then I take them each step. But then, years down the line, I can go, oh, yep, that's how I do this. And then
For 14 armies, I've started writing down my paints, my steps, because Lord knows that at some point that army will get a new model release. I'll want to paint it, and it will have to look like everybody else.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. So, all right.
On
So-
to
Kelsey.
So
are
this
we
is
looking at?
this is definitely a work in progress model that I've been working on. It's a bust that actually Alex gifted me. It is of a Dragonborn Warlock. I definitely have more of a different style than James and Alex do. I have more of a painterly style.
Yep.
But I wanted to talk more about like non-metallic metals and doing pushing your gems a little bit further. Non-metallic metals, I always start with a darker color gray. I've especially mastered more of the silvers than golds. I do have another bust with me that can show how awful my golds are. But my silvers I have gotten down pretty good. Starting with a darker color and then just lightly adding in a little bit more of a ivory or even a lighter, warmer gray, and then keep layering it. And then
Ivory's a good call out.
and the other big thing was to make sure when you look at something metallic, looking at point of references, is to understand that your brightest source are most likely going to land right next to a dark side. There's a huge stark contrast between your whites and your darks on metals.
Okay.
So you're gonna have some transition, but it's not gonna be a big transition between darks and lights. And curvature is huge as well. So on the swirly cues on the pauldrons, the topmost part of the pauldron is gonna hit a lot of light because it's a focal point. And then on the back sides of them, depending on which side you're having your light face. So on this model, I have the left side of the Dragonborn being more in cast and shadow versus his right side. So the right side pauldron is going to be getting a lot more light than the left pauldron.
Okay.
So, which is why I've been kind of waiting to do the left pauldron, because I want to make sure I get the light just right on the one side before I decide to go on to the other.
So a question then, how do you make it not look like stone? So I was doing some non-metallic metal practice. You were there with me, seeing me work on it. How do you make it not look like stone as much as metal?
It's more of keeping smooth gradients rather than textures and stippling. If you stipple, you're going to get those pockets, you're going to it's
that
gonna
stone would have too.
right.
It's a texture versus like a smooth.
because stone is more porous than a metal is. A metal is a flat surface.
Got it.
It can. I haven't done much with decaying or rusted effects on metals yet. That's something that eventually, when I master both golds and silvers, I want to delve more into. But for right now, polished steel, polished metals, at least with silvers, I've gotten down pretty good. But it's mostly just
I can see that.
Yeah.
making
a little straight shot to it.
making sure that you have those nice light gradients, and it's a lot of layering. If you feel like you've pushed it too far, go back with your last dark color
Yeah,
and keep
reduce it a
going
little
back.
bit.
Got it.
Good
Okay.
lesson. Good lesson in blending.
Yeah,
especially
yeah.
because I mean, in order to make, I mean, I'm looking at the steel right here, and I see what you're talking about when you mentioned the sharp contrast, and that's what you just go from that bright to that dark. But looking at it, it still reads smoothly.
Right.
Yeah.
Which, yeah,
And I would say
he's staring at me.
this is probably something that you really need to have a wet palette on.
Yes.
So that you can build your color palette in front of you, and then you can pull from it so that you can go back and forth between multiple colors.
Correct.
And thin them
So
out.
you too can have anxiety like the rest of us. If you don't already have it.
Yeah.
Just mixing the colors. No, it's too much blue, too much green.
Yeah.
Crap.
And it's a lot of back and forth, and again,
Deep sea blue.
and then once you find your recipe, you write it down.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Writing it down is key.
And the gemstones.
Yeah, talk to us about the gemstones because they're bright and they
They
look
seem
like
righteous.
Righteous.
Righteous episodes. Plug things in Biomax.
So it's a lot of similarities to actually doing your metals. Only you want to make sure when you have your you're gonna have your light casting more into it, so your dark sides are going to be on the back side of the loop.
Okay.
Especially this, the Dragonborn's gemstones are actually swirled. So
Yeah.
the
That adds
back-
a whole another layer of complexity to it. It's not
Right.
just one dome surface where you can just like pick a spot.
Yeah.
So usually what I would do is I, again, start with the darkest color, and then you build up your highlight, but you follow the highlight in the direction of the light that it's shining. So you go around closest, you're far away from the one, you're far away from, I'll go like this. You're far away, so you have your center point, your light's like here, at an angle, and then you follow the light. You get close to where the curve starts in, because it's going to cut into the side. But then when you come back around and you're going to be going around, it goes and follows the outside.
And
Okay,
your,
so
your
it's-
highlight points. Yeah.
So it's more like a Mobius strip where you're crossing over and then going on the other side.
Right.
Okay.
And then with the, you
Nice.
keep building, again, you keep layering it up until you reach a point where you don't want to go too far to make it look cartoony.
yeah.
But then at that point, you go with either a bright ivory or a bright ivory, and then you start making your highest point, just doing a light, water it down, and lightly just do a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. I imagine if you go too far too, you could, where your previous color, glaze it to just like reduce it, but still kind of keep a little bit of the higher color on
Correct.
there. So it kind of realigns it back in.
Something I noticed too that you've mentioned on both things is ivory. So using not
Not a white.
not a white. Yeah, not a white. So can you kind of run through why that you might not want to do just pure white or pure black?
Pure white is like you think you see pure white, but really there's very few things in the world, if anything, that's ever just pure white.
That's when you gotta have like a Morpheus moment. What if I told you that you couldn't see pure white?
Well, and everybody's definition of white and gray is different.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
You're never going to have a consistency.
We got a question from the audience. Yes, in the back.
I was told growing up that you add a little bit of blue to make whites pop out better.
Yes.
Is that still correct?
And that helps, yes.
That does help. You can also add like tans if you want a warmer white.
Yeah, warm versus cold.
Right.
warm
Depending
versus
on
cold.
what kind of color, because you can take any color and make it warmer or colder.
Yeah.
I like to make like cold blue colors, but like especially like your tans and yellows and reds, like making them warm or cold. You can shift in both directions and it's fun.
But then you also get into the aspect of if you're starting to do reflections in your metals and stuff. So when you're going to be doing more, and that's something that I also need to study as well, you're going to be hitting more blue sky at the top of a metal. So it should, instead of being a pure white, it's going to be more of a muted, very, very muted light blue if you're going for like a bright sunny day.
Well, and adding in something like not a true white or not a true black, and you're doing like off-white or ivory or
Pale yellow.
Pale yellow, or if you want to go colder, going towards something like a very bright blue-gray. something like that.
Yep.
Those will let you not desaturate the color nearly as much, but it'll let you add in tones so that you're not just pure white and making it become a desaturated kind of mess. It adds tone and color to it. And a lot of times when we were looking at models previous, I don't know that there were a lot here today, but like if we looked at white, it was like, no, you need to add texture to this more than just it being white. You can't just leave it a blue or a yellow or a gray to kind of give it tone and definition similar to black.
Yeah, especially depending on what you're painting it. I mean, that kind of white, like white hair would hit different than necessarily like a whitish like cloth. It's a different texture, it's a different hue.
Well, and like gray hair has silvers and blues and you know the initial color behind it of a brown or a gold
for ash, that darker gray.
Right. So it's not truly like just white. You don't typically have just white hair.
Yeah.
So, and this is kind of a comparison for my gold currently with my Space Bear bust in comparison with my Dragonborn.
Space Bear.
So instead of doing a blue-gray as a base tone, I did a dark gold brown to get that warmness started.
Mm-hmm.
The problem that I have with this right now is I have highlighted it too much. With the bright yellow and the pale yellow, I need to bring back more of that dark brown to kind of blend it in better. You can kind of see where everything's blocked in, but it's not blended very well.
I mean, there's some spots where you can see that you have this nice gradient, but yeah, you're going from like a dark brown to the brightest color in too short of an amount of time.
Correct.
And those lengths between where you have the dark and the light are too long, so you don't have enough of that middle ground buildup. Because I'm assuming that you want it to be the kind of your darkest moments and your brightest moments are the shortest, and then you want all the gradients in between to be longer. Got it. Okay. Very cool.
So it's knowing when you need to do those steps and change things around is important when you're doing non-metallic metals and blending in layers and glazes.
I would say practice.
And practice makes perfect.
Because how long ago did you work on this guy versus...
He's been my Dragonborn has been more recent. I think the last time I worked on him was a couple days ago.
Yeah.
He has been probably a couple months.
I remember when you showed me the bust the first time.
I mean, it's been around since Cade.
Yeah.
Your Cade bust.
Yep.
And so I mean that's been a while. So you've been working on this guy off and on here and there, trying to. I'm sure that you have a whole different technique that you would approach your non-metallics now than like your Dragonborn. Your Dragonborn looks a lot more on the tighter end of quality versus this guy. This is much more chunky, kind of halfway blocked in. This looks more like what I do right now, versus yours is on the Dragonborn is much more polished, tight. It has that quality of practice. Of practice quality, and just having them side by side is you can see the world of difference between the two.
But that's just the importance of doing test models and practicing and trying new things.
Something that I would also hazard is this is a really good example of being able to look at both models at the same time and realize where you've come from and where you're going to, and eventually whenever you get down the line too and you do another one, you can look back and see the progression as well. Some people want to take a model that they've worked on and strip it immediately. Like if they're like, oh, I don't like anything about this, and they want to strip it. And sometimes I can understand that from like a cost effectiveness standpoint, but if it's a model that you're working on and you want to practice with it and work through it, taking another model next to it and doing the same thing again and then comparing is really what you want to do.
Yeah. Well, especially if it's a work in progress. I actually just did a recent post on my Instagram talking about it, where if you hit a certain point where you feel like, because I was blending skin tones on an Agrodon to its scales, And like the way it was just sitting there initially, I was just like, nope, I messed up. And there was like an immediate kind of click in my head to like hit the reset button. I encourage anyone to push past that click. Like that whenever your brain does that little thing like, oh, I permanently messed up, I need to go back, I need to redo it, I need to start back at square zero. Don't. Just keep going and adapt and overcome.
Yep.
Because there's a decent chance that what you did can either be rectified and saved, or number two, does something completely different. And I ended up fixing it by, I took a dry brush of like a pastel orange to build up on like the skin, and now it looks better.
And sometimes it makes it even, like you said, even better.
Yep.
And there's no mistakes. There's happy little accidents.
Happy little accidents.
Well, and to that point too, sometimes whenever, even watching professional YouTubers go through and do painting, like Heraldus is really, same with Marco, are really common for this. They'll be working on a model and you're like, it's never gonna work. Like, you've screwed this thing up so hard, I can't, where are you going with this? And then they do like 3 things and you're like, my God, it's accurate, you know, it's perfect.
Minkus chimes in, painting is just fixing your last mistake.
That's true. That is very true.
Yeah.
And when you're in the middle of a process, trust the process. You know, everybody always beats on that drum, like, trust the process, and it's true.
Yeah, best laid plans can go astray very quickly, but I mean, it doesn't mean you're like lost.
Yeah.
It just means you've just got to figure out a new step.
Yeah.
Which it gets, to me, it gets better when you find that little moment of like something just clicked. Mm-hmm. Like I just figured something out because of a mistake I made.
Yep. And sometimes that can be as easy as, how do I get to this next step? Posting it to a friend, asking other hobbyists, and going, hey, where do I go from here? I'm stuck where I'm at. I mean, we've had it with all of the previous winners for Dwarven Axe, for us, where we've posted, we're like, I don't know where to go. I'm really lost right now. And then they'll come back with good feedback on...
I know I had many of those moments with Cade.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, like, Seely's done it, where he's messaged and been like, I'm really lost where I'm at. Zoe's done it on her projects too. It's just, it is a constant community, like, feedback on how do I get better, by asking the question of like, hey, I've taken the picture, what do I do? Where do I go from here? What are some suggestions? Because even if you don't do exactly what they say, it can sometimes spark an idea for you to go, oh, I didn't look at it from that angle. Yep, I know what to do now. And then apply. So ask questions, grow from your mistakes, and the only way that you're going to grow is by doing mistakes.
Or don't, just paint it really fast like I do.
That's right. Never mind the mistakes.
Yeah. It's
like
just keep going.
It's just a characteristic of the model now.
It works perfectly. Orcs, great example. Just like, oh, this kind of looks like trash. That's right. They are trash. It's perfect.
You just got to be that surgeon with a 300% fatality rate on one surgery. So this, I brought this model to show off some. I don't know how we're gonna do zoom on this, or even if we can capture some of the colors. Oh, I'm getting direction.
Bring it closer.
I'll bring it closer. Okay.
Right.
More.
So this model I brought in. So this is a work in progress as well for a paint trade with Kelsey, actually, and so we each picked up a skeleton rider, and we're doing a trade. So I wanted to pull in some grimdark aspects. So this has a lot of, if those that don't know, grimdark style can be a lot of grime and whatever like that. Recently, it's been utilizing a paint called Streaking Grime. Everybody,
Dun, 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 dun.
yeah, it's been used all over the place. It's the new Nuln Oil, the new Agrax Earthshade, but it's an enamel wash, and you basically coat it and then remove a ton of it. But you can't, from my aspect, you can't stop there. You have to add things like oils and other enamels and weathering, and so it's very heavy into weathering and styling with it. So you're doing a lot of base coats, letting the wash do a lot of the heavy lifting for definition, and then you're adding in extra components and stylistic choices using like weathering afterwards and oil paints and things. So I wanted to do it. It had been a little while since I'd done Grimdark style. I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun. It's very freeing. Being able to try new techniques and styles. It's very outside of like your normal, oh, I'm going to do my non-metallic metals, and it basically throws all of that to the wayside. It's like, nope, dirty it up and make it look, make it look grimy. And so on this model, though, I did a ton of freehand on the plaid, like bits
By the horse.
Yeah, skating, I guess, cloths. I'm really happy with how the cloak turned out. I did a ton of work on giving it definition, texture, and then also pushing into doing extra blending. And it's very subtle. When you look at the model in person, it's a subtle blend between purple to like a very light blue. But when it's after it got washed, it knocked down all of the really bright aspects and hit this nice like middle tone of wash, or a middle tone of color. So but in a lot of cases I wanted to pull to the scene that it's in, because it is a display model, so I wanted to make sure that it had this aspect of it is a unique model that doesn't need to be replicated, so I can kind of go off the rails with doing a little bit of extra weathering. Don't really care what I'm doing. Whatever kind of flow I'm in, I don't have to record it down, which is really fun.
Just having fun.
Yeah, just having fun with it, so.
Which was the important bit.
Yeah. I was cursing a lot, trying to figure out my pathway when I was doing the plaid, and kind of, this was a model that I stumbled a bit on, trying to figure out where I wanted to go with it, what I needed to do to execute on it. And that, in sometimes you need to just stumble through a model, even if it's not good at the end and you're like, well, at least I tried. That's sometimes better than not doing it at all. So
Fair enough.
because I did get to a stage where I was like, I can hit the wash and I can do the cool things that I want to do with it, and that's what I hit. And as soon as I hit that stride, it was like everything started falling into place. Then it was like, I want to work on this. I found the groove of color palette, color theory. Actually, with this model, I bought a color wheel for the first time. That thing's awesome.
I have a book on color, so I have a color wheel in the book.
If you want to improve your painting, the number one thing that I can say for $10, go on Amazon and buy a color wheel. Because you can get ones that have like the little cutouts that show you like, what is it, contrasting colors and then complementary and tertiary colors. Because it can, it's such a interesting thing when you look at a model and you're like, that's wrong. I don't like how that turned out.
It kind of connects the dots for you. Like, this is why I don't like it. It's because your eye doesn't see this as a complementary color.
Yeah, because it's not pleasing, because it's completely different.
This doesn't please me.
It doesn't please me. But like a color wheel for $10, I mean, it was like 8 something shit, and all it is it's a color wheel, and it has a little thing on top of it that you can slide around and show you what colors it is. But from there you can go, okay, so this one was, I want a blue. Cool. What pairs well with blue? Green, yellow. Awesome. Perfect. Purple is on the opposite side. It's a complementary color, but I want it to shine. So that is the highlight on the eyes of the glow, because then it contrasts against everything else. It draws your eyes to the purple because it's the brightest points, but it also contrasts against the green, and then that way it's not overpowering either, because you have purple against yellow, which are exactly opposite sides of the color wheel. But it was really interesting. I laid out this color palette, bought a color wheel, plugged in that my primary color was blue, and then everything else fell into place, and I compared it against the sheet that I colored everything. I was like, oh hey, I did it right. So
I mean, I think it also, look to your point, when you get past a certain point, I think all of us kind of find the excitement when you're painting a model and you just sit down to do a little thing with it. Just maybe you're like, oh, I'll just paint a little bit of this, and then you kind of blink and you look and it's like 8 o'clock and you're like, I sat down at 3 o'clock. What happened?
What happened?
Yeah, you just realize you just got really taken in with a model. And sometimes I have that where I pick up a model and I build it, and I was like, we're gonna paint it. Happened with the new Snickrot model. I literally just picked him up and we're doing this right now.
Yeah.
Just paint him from front to back.
And when you get that model and have that experience, it's so freeing, and
fulfilling,
motivates
very
you
fulfilling.
so much.
Yep, it does.
Yeah,
It does.
completing a model is very satisfactory feeling.
I know that one thing that I would say that is important as well as finding that flow is breaks. Don't be afraid to take breaks, to put in my encouragement. And I know Danny, you're listening, and I've given him this advice before, and he's given me the same. Is clean up your painting area. Make sure that it's good to go for the next project. Make sure that all your projects are off of it. You know, have everything in its place, and then turn off the lights and leave it, and go do something else. Go play a video game. Go outside and take a walk. Go do something, and that might be a day. It might be a week. It might be a month. It might be several months. But sometimes it's better to just put it down and be like, you know what? I don't want to work on this right now because I won't have the passion to do it. And then whenever that passion does finally return for your hobby, get back into it. Because you'll have to pay that bill of burnout tenfold, and you will pay it. That's the problem. It's not that you won't ever, and that'll never happen to me or whatever like that. It will eventually happen. And make sure that you recognize what burnout is in painting, and don't be like, oh, just push past it and get by it. You need to give yourself that break and that time.
I disagree. Chain yourself to your chair. Dehydrate yourself. Get yourself a guinea pig feeder. Just
Red Bull.
Red Bull,
Bull, drip feed straight down. Find a
Please
nurse
clip
that can just put it into an IV.
He has not hit burnout yet.
No.
That's what I can say.
I am in paint 14 armies mode, and I recently did a small inventory, and I actually have the bulk of my armies painted.
Wow,
That's awesome.
Which
Awesome.
is nuts.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
I'm sure that wall is coming. It's headed.
Just be aware of it, because it is as important as painting itself, that you recognize when
because that's when you'll do your best. Is when you're conscious of it, and you're just like, hey, I'm really excited to paint this today, and it's like, awesome.
Yep.
This is the time to sit down and do it.
yeah, or be excited for that next model
Absolutely.
to be able to sit down. So
All right, I think that'll do it.
yeah, that's it for me. Thank
That
you.
will be the Dwarven Axe.
That'll be
Yes.
the Dwarven Axe Q3. Thank you all for joining,
Yes.
for your comments and your feedback.
And our survey.
I didn't actually put together a survey. Dang it.
All right. Next time.
Next time.
Email to bert@theforge.com. No. All comments and complaints.
All especially the complaints.
Especially complaints. But anyway, thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you for Q4.
Yeah. If you'd like to follow me, I'm at Tattoo Table. If you'd like to follow me, I'm at Tattoo Tabletop on Instagram and /Tattoo Tabletop on Facebook. Probably follow me on Instagram. That's where everything goes. It just shares over to Facebook.
Yeah.
I've had a few people message me, and they're just like, "Hey, I messaged you like a few months ago." I'm like, "Oh, sorry."
And again, thank you, James, for joining us
Yeah.
as a guest judge.
Yeah,
It's
this was
fantastic
fun.
having you all on. So
Yeah.
Awesome.
hopefully in the future.
I'll submit. Also, I'll have to submit for the next one.
That'll be great.
Renegade.
Renegade.
Oh, that's right.
Renegade
Renegade is
Open.
coming up.
That'll be good.
I'll have to think of something.
All right. Well, thank you. Take it easy.
And we'll see you later.
Yeah.